In Victorian England, some of the hardest working people in the country were also the most invisible. They saw everything. They knew every secret, and one wrong word could destroy their entire lives. Here's what it was really like to be a servant in a grand Victorian mansion. Before we go back in time together, if you're enjoying settling in for the night with a bit of history, consider hitting subscribe. And I'm curious, where in the world are you listening from right now, and what time is it there? Drop it in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, get comfortable, adjust your pillow, pull that blanket up just a little higher, feel how soft everything is, how warm, how safe. Because where we're going, comfort was something you created for other people, never for yourself. The bell is what wakes you, not a gentle chime, not a polite ring, a sharp, insistent clanging that cuts through the darkness of your attic room like a knife through cold butter. You've been asleep for maybe 4 hours. Your body aches in places you didn't know existed before you came to Ashworth House 3 weeks ago. Your shoulders, your knees, the small of your back. Muscles you never even thought about now scream at you every morning. The room is pitch black. Winter mornings in 1885 don't come with sunrise at this hour. Just darkness, cold, and that damned bell. Your eyes open to nothing. Just darkness so thick you could cut it with a bread knife. The only sensation you're aware of is the rough wool blanket against your chin and the freezing air attacking every exposed bit of skin. Your breath comes out in small white puffs, though you can't see them. You can feel them though. Feel the warmth leaving your lungs and immediately getting swallowed by the cold. Next to you in the narrow bed, Mary Brennan is already stirring. Mary's been in service for 11 years. Started as a scullery maid at 12, worked her way up to housemaid by 15, and now at 23 she's one of the senior housemaids. She's also your roommate, your teacher, and though you're still too new to say it out loud, possibly your only friend in this massive stone monster of a house. "Up," Mary whispers. Her voice is thick with sleep, but there's an edge of urgency in it. Now, before the second bell. You don't know what happens after the second bell, you haven't dared to ask. But the way Mary says it, the way her body tenses even in the darkness, tells you everything you need to know. You don't want to find out. Your feet hit the floor, and immediately you understand why the older maids warned you to sleep with your stockings on. The floorboards are so cold they actually burn, like walking on ice, like stepping onto a frozen pond in the dead of winter. Except this pond is inside a house that supposedly belongs to one of the wealthiest families in the county. Here's something they don't tell you about grand Victorian mansions. The beauty, the warmth, the comfort, that's all reserved for upstairs. The parts where the family lives, the parts where guests are entertained. The servants' quarters might as well be a different building entirely. Different world, really. Same roof, two completely separate realities existing in parallel. You fumble in the darkness for the pitcher of water on the small nightstand. When you pour it into the basin, you can actually hear tiny shards of ice clinking against the porcelain. The water had frozen overnight. Again. This is the 3rd time this week. Mary lights a candle stub, just for a moment. Just long enough for you both to splash freezing water on your faces and pull on your work dresses. The dark ones, coarse fabric, practical. The kind of dress that says I'm about to spend the next 4 hours on my knees scrubbing grates and hauling coal. The pretty ones, the starched white aprons and neat caps, those come later, after the dirty work is done, after you've made yourself invisible again. You have exactly 8 minutes from the time the bell rings until you're expected to be in the servants' hall. 8 minutes to wash, dress, make your bed, and navigate 3 flights of narrow back stairs in near total darkness. The Ashworth family has gaslight in their quarters. Even some of those fancy new electric lights in the main dining room. The servants get candles when they can afford them on their own wages. "Your cap's crooked," Mary murmurs as you both reach the second landing. She doesn't stop moving, just reaches back and adjusts it with the practiced ease of someone who's done this 1,000 times before. Mrs. Whitmore notices everything. Mrs. Whitmore, the housekeeper. You haven't spoken to her more than a dozen times since you arrived, but you've learned to recognise the sound of her keys from 3 rooms away. Every housekeeper in England, as far as you can tell, carries a set of keys on a special chain attached to her belt. They call it a chatelaine. Mrs. Whitmore's keys number somewhere around 40, and when she walks they produce a distinctive jingling that strikes fear into the hearts of every junior maid in the house. Those keys open everything. The linen closets, the pantries, the china cupboards, the cellar doors. Every locked space in the house falls under Mrs. Whitmore's domain. She knows where every napkin is, every candle, every bar of soap. She keeps ledgers, counts everything, and if something goes missing, even something as small as a single sugar cube, she will find out, and someone will answer for it. The servants' hall is already half full when you arrive. 15 people crowded around a long wooden table, their breath still visible in the early morning cold. The fire hasn't been lit yet. Of course it hasn't. That's your job. Or rather, it's your job to help with the 10 other fireplaces scattered throughout the main house, the ones that need to be blazing by the time the family wakes at 8. At the head of the table sits Mr. Finch, the butler, king of the lower world, at least on the male side. He's maybe 50, with steel grey hair, and a posture so rigid you'd think someone had replaced his spine with an iron rod. Mr. Finch doesn't smile. Mr. Finch doesn't joke. Mr. Finch speaks in measured sentences that carry the weight of absolute authority, and when Mr. Finch gives an instruction, you follow it. No questions, no hesitation, not if you want to keep your position. Next to him, leaving one chair empty between them because hierarchy matters even in seating arrangements, sits Mrs. Whitmore. Her face is impossible to read. Not cruel exactly, just severe, like someone who has spent so many years maintaining perfect order that any other expression would feel like a breach of duty. You slide onto the bench at the far end of the table near the door. That's where the junior servants sit, the ones lowest in the pecking order. The scullery maid is there, a girl even younger than you, maybe 13, with raw red hands that tell the story of too many hours in cold dishwater. Next to her is one of the footman's assistants, a skinny boy who can't seem to keep his eyes open. Breakfast is bread, a slice each. Some tea, weak enough to see through, shared between the lot of you. Those who arrived first got butter. You didn't arrive first. You'll remember that for tomorrow. You chew slowly, trying to make it last. Trying not to think about what the Ashworth family will be eating in a few hours. Fresh eggs, bacon, kippers, toast with marmalade, fresh fruit, even in winter, coffee served in delicate china cups. The leftover scraps from their breakfast will make their way down to the servants' hall eventually, but that's hours away. And by then, you'll have already lit 8 fireplaces, emptied a dozen chamber pots, and hauled more buckets of hot water than you can count. At exactly 10 minutes past 5, Mrs. Whitmore stands. The scraping of her chair silences any remaining whispers. Every spine straightens. Every eye finds a spot on the table to study intently. "Today's schedule," she announces, her voice crisp as the winter air outside. "There will be guests arriving for dinner this evening. The blue guest room will need preparing. Extra attention to the formal rooms. I expect to see my reflection in every polished surface before noon." She doesn't look at anyone in particular, but you feel her gaze sweep across the table like a searchlight. Any servant found idle will answer to me personally. That's it. That's the morning address. In a household of nearly 30 staff, Mrs. Whitmore manages to communicate everything you need to know in under 60 seconds. The rest you'll figure out as you go, following Mary's lead, watching, learning, trying not to make any mistakes that could cost you everything. Because that's the thing about this job. It's not just a job, it's your entire life, your home, your food, your future. Everything depends on staying in the good graces of the household. One serious mistake, one accusation of dishonesty, one moment of being too slow or too visible or too anything, and you're out. Not just out of a job, out on the street. No reference, no character, no future. Back home, in the tiny village where you grew up, your mother cried when you left for service. Not because she was sad to see you go, because she was relieved. One less mouth to feed, one less body in an already crowded cottage. Your father had died 3 winters ago. Consumption. By the time your mother found a position for you through the local registry, you'd been eating nothing but cabbage soup and prayers for nearly a year. This is better, even with the cold, even with the aching muscles and the 4 a.m. wake-up calls and the constant gnawing fear of doing something wrong. At least here, you eat every day. At least here, you have a bed. Shared, yes. Cramped, certainly. But a bed, with a blanket, and a roof that doesn't leak. That's the bargain. That's what every servant in every grand house across England understands. You trade your freedom for security, your identity for a uniform, your name sometimes quite literally for a title. Some households even rename their servants to avoid confusion. If the last housemaid was named Sarah, you become Sarah too. Your own name is irrelevant. You're a function, a role, a pair of hands and a pair of feet designed to accomplish tasks while remaining completely invisible. But you're getting ahead of yourself. The philosophy comes later. Right now, you have fireplaces to light. Mary is already on her feet, heading toward the door that leads to the main house. You follow, your bread barely settled in your stomach, your fingers still clumsy with cold. The servants' corridors are narrow, the ceilings are low. Everything about these spaces is designed to remind you that you're meant to be neither seen nor heard by anyone important. The main house is a different world entirely. When you push through the green baize door that separates the servants' wing from the family quarters, it's like stepping into another country. The ceilings soar. The walls are covered in silk paper, deep crimson and gold. Paintings line the hallways, portraits of Ashworths going back generations, their eyes following you as you move silently across the polished floors. And the silence, that's the strangest part. The house is asleep, or seems to be, but you know it's not really empty. Somewhere upstairs, behind heavy wooden doors, the family slumbers in feather beds with thick quilts and warming pans. They'll wake in a few hours, comfortable and rested, completely unaware of the small army of workers who've been moving through their homes since before dawn. Your job, quite literally, is to make magic happen, to light fires without being seen, to clean rooms without leaving a trace, to ensure that when Lady Ashworth opens her eyes at 8:30, the house is already warm, the curtains are drawn back just so, and a pot of hot water is waiting for her morning wash. She shouldn't have to think about how any of it happened. It should simply be done. Magic. That's what the upper class calls it when they're feeling generous. Magic and good breeding and the natural order of things. But you know the truth now. There's no magic. Just you and Mary and the 30 other people who call the servants' quarters home. 30 pairs of hands working 16 hours a day, 6.5 days a week, to maintain the illusion. Today, you've been assigned to help with the ground floor fireplaces. Yesterday it was chamber pots. Tomorrow it might be the endless task of polishing silver until your reflection stares back at you from every surface. You've learned not to ask why. Orders come from Mrs. Whitmore through the senior maids, and you follow them. That's all there is to it. The first fireplace is in the morning room. It's a lovely space, if you're being honest. Pale blue walls, comfortable chairs arranged before tall windows that will soon catch the weak winter sunlight. A piano sits in the corner, draped with a fringed cloth. Fresh flowers, even in January, fill a crystal vase on the side table. You don't know where the flowers come from, don't know who cuts them, who arranges them, who pays for them. That's someone else's concern. Your concern is the fireplace, and more specifically the coal scuttle sitting beside it. Mary hands you a metal ashpan and a small brush. "Watch first," she whispers, "then do exactly as I do." She kneels before the cold hearth with a grace that comes from years of practice. First, she spreads an old sheet on the floor to catch any mess. Then she begins removing the ashes from yesterday's fire carefully, methodically, without raising any dust. Each movement is precise, economical, no wasted motion, no unnecessary sound. The ashes go into the pan. Later they'll be taken to the kitchen to be sifted. The small pieces of unburned coal, the cinders, will be saved and used to light tomorrow's fires. Nothing in a Victorian household goes to waste. Not coal, not candle stubs, not leftover food, not even the time servants spend standing still when they could be working. Once the ashes are cleared, Mary takes a small brush and sweeps out the grate. Then comes the blacklead. It's a thick, dark paste that smells of iron and something faintly chemical. She applies it to the metal grate and fire surround with a cloth, working it into every crevice, then buffs it to a high shine with a different brush. "The family notices this," she murmurs without looking up. Might not know what they're looking at, but they notice when it's not done. That's the thing about being invisible. When you do your job right, no one sees you at all. But let one thing slip, leave one smudge, and suddenly everyone's asking questions. She's right. You've seen it happen. Not to yourself, not yet, but to others. A footman dismissed for wearing scuffed shoes to dinner service. A kitchen maid sent packing for burning the toast. The standards in a house like this are impossibly high, and the consequences for failing to meet them are swift and absolute. When Mary finishes polishing, she begins laying the new fire. Crumpled newspaper first, then small sticks of kindling arranged in a careful pyramid, then larger pieces of coal balanced on top. She strikes a match, touches it to the paper, and watches as the flame catches and begins to spread. "Don't leave until you're sure it's caught proper," she says. "Last thing you want is for the fire to go out and have to be relit." Mrs. Whitmore counts the matches. She counts the matches. Of course she does. You're starting to realise that in this house everything is counted. Every lump of coal, every candle, every bar of soap, every single thing that costs money is monitored, measured, and accounted for. Waste is a sin. Carelessness is a dismissible offence. You watch the flames dance for a moment, mesmerised by their warmth. It feels almost criminal to be this close to heat and comfort, when you know that in a few minutes you'll be back in the cold hallways, moving on to the next fireplace, the next task, the next small miracle that needs performing before the family stirs. "Come on," Mary says, already gathering her supplies. 3 more on this floor, then up to the bedrooms, and we need to be finished before the family comes down for breakfast. If they see us, we're done for." You nod, following her out of the morning room and into the corridor. The house is still quiet, still dark in places, the January dawn barely beginning to lighten the windows. But somewhere upstairs, someone is stirring. You can feel it. A subtle shift in the atmosphere. A door opening and closing. Footsteps, muffled by carpet, moving toward the bathroom. You freeze. Mary freezes too. For a long moment neither of you breathes. Then Mary grabs your arm and pulls you into an alcove behind a tall potted fern. You press yourself against the wall, heart hammering as the footsteps grow closer. A figure appears at the top of the stairs, male, tall, moving with the easy confidence of someone who has never once had to consider whether he belongs somewhere. It's Master James, the eldest son, 22 years old, heir to the Ashworth fortune, and according to the whispers in the servants' hall, the reason the last housemaid in your position was dismissed. He pauses at the top of the stairs, yawns, scratches his head, and turns back toward his room. The danger passes. You release a breath you didn't realize you were holding. Close, Mary murmurs. Too close. If he'd seen us, we'd have to explain what we were doing here at this hour, and then we'd be behind schedule, and then Mrs. Whitmore would want to know why. You nod, still shaking slightly. This is what life is like in a grand house. Constant vigilance, constant awareness of where you are, where the family is, where you're supposed to be and not supposed to be at any given moment. The back stairs, the service corridors, the narrow passageways hidden behind the walls, those are your domain. The main rooms, the grand staircases, the family quarters, those belong to a different species entirely. As you make your way to the next fireplace, a sound catches your ear. Familiar now, but still capable of making your stomach drop. The bells. In the servants' hall, mounted high on the wall near the ceiling, hangs a board fitted with 24 brass bells. Each one is connected by a complex network of wires and pulleys to a different room in the house. When someone pulls a bell rope in the library, a specific bell rings downstairs. When someone pulls the cord in the master bedroom, a different bell sounds. An experienced servant can tell from the tone alone which room is calling. Mrs. Whitmore, they say, can identify any bell in the house from 3 floors away, even while carrying on a conversation about menu planning. It's like having ears everywhere, eyes everywhere. The house itself seems to be watching, listening, waiting to catch you in a moment of laziness or inattention. Right now the bells are silent. The family isn't awake yet, but soon they will be, and when they ring, someone will answer, instantly, without question, without hesitation, because that's the job, that's the life. You exist to respond to their needs before they even realize they have them. To light fires they'll never see being built, to clean rooms they'll never see being cleaned, to carry water, lay out clothes, prepare meals, and manage 1,000 small details of daily life so that the people upstairs never have to think about any of it. You are invisible, you are essential, you are replaceable. And as the cold winter morning stretches ahead of you, filled with labour and fear and the constant drumbeat of duty, you realise that this, all of this, is only the beginning. There are 8 more fireplaces waiting, a dozen chamber pots to empty, beds to make, water to carry, floors to scrub, silver to polish. The day has barely started, and somewhere in the back of your mind, a small voice whispers the question you've been trying not to ask yourself since the moment you arrived at Ashworth House. How long can you survive like this? The morning room fireplace is blazing nicely now. You've moved on to the library, then the drawing room, then the small parlour where Lady Ashworth takes her morning correspondence. Each fire follows the same ritual: ashes out, grate polished, kindling arranged, coal balanced, match struck, flame caught. By the time you finish the last one, your knees are black with soot, and your back feels like someone has been using it as a washboard. The muscles across your shoulders have knotted into something resembling rope. Your hands, already chapped from yesterday's work, are now streaked with black lead and coal dust. But the fires are lit, all of them, and you've managed to stay invisible. Mary checks her small pocket watch, a treasured possession she inherited from her grandmother. 7:15. Good, we've got time. Time for what, you want to ask? But you're learning that questions are a luxury in this house. Better to watch, better to follow, better to figure things out on your own rather than risk looking stupid or slow. The answer becomes clear soon enough. Time for breakfast. The real breakfast. The one where the servants actually sit down and eat something more substantial than a slice of bread. Back through the green baize door, back into the narrow corridors of the servants' wing. The temperature drops immediately, not as cold as the attic, but noticeably cooler than the rooms you just left. The family's comfort doesn't extend to these hallways. Why would it? They never see them. The servants' hall is transformed. The long table that held 15 shivering people an hour ago now seats nearly 30, and the smell of actual food fills the air. Porridge, bacon, toast, tea that looks like it might actually contain some tea. But here's the thing nobody told you about. There are rules about where you sit. Not just any rules, a whole system, a hierarchy within a hierarchy, wheels within wheels, ranks and positions and careful gradations of status that determine everything from where you sleep to what you eat, to whether anyone will bother learning your name. At the head of the table sits Mr. Finch, the butler, still ramrod straight, still expressionless. A cup of tea steams before him, the good china, not the chipped cups the rest of you use. To his right, in the place of honour, sits Mrs. Whitmore with her ring of keys. They don't speak to each other. They don't need to. They've been running this household together for 15 years, and their communication happens in glances and subtle nods that you can't begin to interpret. Below them, arranged in careful order of precedence, sit the upper servants. The cook, Mrs. Hartley, a stout woman with flour perpetually dusted on her forearms. The lady's maid, Miss Perkins, whose job it is to dress Lady Ashworth and maintain her extensive wardrobe. The valet, Mr. Crawford, who performs the same service for Lord Ashworth. The head housemaid, the head footman, the senior kitchen staff. These people eat well. Their plates are full. Their tea is hot. They have butter for their toast and sugar for their porridge. They sit at the upper end of the table near the fire in chairs that actually have cushions. Then there's a gap, a visible physical gap in the seating arrangement, almost like a moat separating one kingdom from another. Below that gap sit the lower servants, the junior housemaids, the footmen, the kitchen maids, the scullery maid, the hall boy, you. Your end of the table is furthest from the fire. Your chairs are plain wooden benches. Your porridge is thinner, your bacon fattier, your tea weaker. Not because there isn't enough food to go around, there's plenty, but because this is how things are done. This is how they've always been done. The upper servants get the best of everything, and the lower servants get what's left. It's a copy of the world upstairs, you realise. The family takes the best, and the servants get what remains. And within the servant class the pattern repeats itself. Upper servants first, lower servants second. It's hierarchies all the way down. Mary slides onto the bench beside you, her plate already filled. She's been here long enough to know exactly where to sit, exactly how much to take, exactly how to navigate these invisible boundaries without causing offence. "Eat quick," she murmurs. "Upper servants leave in 10 minutes. Once they go, we can talk." You don't understand what she means until it happens. At exactly 7:45, Mr. Finch sets down his teacup. The sound is almost imperceptible, but every upper servant at the table responds to it like a signal. They rise, almost in unison, and file out of the servants' hall through a door you hadn't noticed before. "They're going to the housekeeper's room," Mary explains once they've gone. The upper servants take their pudding and cheese in there, away from the lower staff. It's called the Pug's Parlour, though nobody seems to know why. They have their own space, their own rituals, their own world within a world. It's like that everywhere, Mary says, spooning porridge into her mouth between words. The butler doesn't do footman's work, the housekeeper doesn't polish silver. Everyone has their own job, their own place, their own set of rules. Cross those lines and you're in trouble. You nod, trying to absorb it all. The structure is dizzying. Back in your village, there was the squire and there was everyone else. Simple, clear. Here, there are layers upon layers of rank and privilege, each one with its own customs and expectations. Mr. Finch, you venture quietly. What's he actually like? Mary's spoon pauses halfway to her mouth. She glances around, making sure no one is close enough to hear. He's fair, she says finally. Strict as iron, but fair. Does his job better than anyone I've ever seen. Runs this house like a general runs an army. Every footman answers to him. Every piece of silver in that house passes through his hands. He knows where every bottle of wine is kept, what year it was bottled, which guests prefer which vintage. Lord Ashworth trusts him completely. She lowers her voice even further. But here's the thing about Mr. Finch. He knows everything. Everything that happens in this house, upstairs or down. He sees things nobody else sees, hears things nobody else hears. If you're slacking off, if you're talking to someone you shouldn't be talking to, if you're taking something that doesn't belong to you, he'll know. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. You swallow hard. The porridge suddenly tastes like paste. The keys, you say, remembering the heavy ring that hangs at his waist. He has keys too, like Mrs. Whitmore. Different keys. He has opened the wine cellar, the silver pantry, the master's study, the valuables, things that could be stolen, things that matter. Mary shrugs. Mrs. Whitmore controls the household. Mr. Finch controls the wealth. It's a partnership, you realise. Butler and housekeeper working together, running the entire operation from below stairs. The family upstairs might own the house, might pay the wages, might technically be in charge. But the day-to-day running of things, that belongs to Mr. Finch and Mrs. Whitmore. They are the brain of the household. Everyone else is just muscle, and you are the lowest muscle of all. What about Mrs. Whitmore, you ask? Mary, she terrifies me. Mary actually laughs at that, a quiet sound quickly stifled. She terrifies everyone, that's her job. But listen, she leans closer. I've been here 3 years. In that time, I've seen Mrs. Whitmore dismiss 4 girls. Every single one of them deserved it. Lazy, or dishonest, or talking back when they shouldn't. She's hard, yes, but she's not cruel. Do your work, keep your head down, don't steal anything, don't get too friendly with a footman, and you'll be fine. Don't get too friendly with a footman, you file that away for later. There's a story there, you're certain, but now isn't the time to ask. The clock on the wall shows 7:55. In 5 minutes, the lower servants will need to be back at their posts, scattered throughout the house to continue the endless work of maintaining a mansion for people who barely acknowledge their existence. You shovel the last of your porridge into your mouth and drain your tea. Cold now, but you don't care. Calories are calories. Warmth is warmth. You take what you can get. Mary leads you back upstairs for the next round of duties. The family is stirring now. You can hear movement above, footsteps on carpeted floors, the distant sound of a door closing. Somewhere, a bell rings, then another, then a third. The house is waking up. The real work is about to begin. Your assignment for the next 3 hours is chamber pots. Yes, chamber pots. The porcelain containers that wealthy Victorians use when they don't want to walk all the way to the water closet in the middle of the night. Every bedroom has one, usually tucked discreetly under the bed or behind a screen, and every morning someone has to empty them. That someone today is you. There's a rhythm to it, Mary explains as she hands you a covered pail. The family leaves their rooms for breakfast around 8:30. That's when you go in. Quick, quiet. Get the pot, empty it in the slop pail, rinse it, put it back. You should be in and out in under 2 minutes. Under 2 minutes. To enter a bedroom, locate the chamber pot, carry it to the servants' washroom, empty it, clean it, and return it to its proper place. All without making a sound, all without being seen. What if they're still in the room, you ask? Mary looks at you like you've just asked what colour the sky is. Then you don't go in. You wait. You come back later. Under no circumstances do you enter a family member's bedroom while they're in it. That's not just a rule, that's the rule. Break it and you're gone. No warning, no second chance. Gone. You nod quickly. The message is received. The first bedroom is Lady Ashworth's private chamber. It's connected to the master bedroom by a shared dressing room, a common arrangement in wealthy households. You press your ear to the door and listen. Silence. Good. The door opens without a sound. Someone, probably Mary herself on a previous morning, has oiled the hinges to perfection. You slip inside and immediately your breath catches. The room is beautiful. Beautiful in a way you've never experienced before. The walls are covered in pale silk, hand-painted with delicate flowers. The bed is massive, a four-poster draped with velvet curtains, piled high with pillows and quilts. The carpet beneath your feet is so soft it feels like walking on clouds. A fire burns in the marble fireplace, the one you lit hours ago, casting golden light across everything. And the smell, not the damp wool and coal dust of the servants' quarters. Something else. Lavender, maybe. Rosewater. Something expensive and lovely that seems to float in the air itself. You could stand here all day drinking it in, but you have 90 seconds left. The chamber pot is where Mary said it would be, behind a Chinese screen in the corner. You grab it, cover firmly in place, and hurry back to the servants' corridor. The slop pail is waiting in a small closet near the back stairs. Empty, rinse, return. 87 seconds. Not bad. But here's the thing about chamber pots. They're the most humiliating part of the job, yes, but they're also the most intimate. When you empty Lady Ashworth's chamber pot, when you handle this most private aspect of her daily existence, you are closer to her than her own children ever get. You know things about her that nobody else knows. The medicine bottle on her nightstand, the half-written letter on her desk, the small portrait tucked behind the mirror, a young man in military uniform who doesn't appear anywhere else in the house. These are secrets, private moments, glimpses into a life that you serve but can never be part of, and you must never, ever speak of them to anyone. That's the first rule of personal service, and you learn it without anyone having to tell you. What happens in the family's rooms stays in the family's rooms. You see nothing, you hear nothing, you remember nothing. Your discretion is absolute, not because you're asked for it, but because you understand on some deep instinctive level that this is the price of being allowed into these spaces at all. The other bedrooms follow the same pattern. Master James's room, the one you saw him emerge from this morning, is surprisingly untidy. Clothes on the floor, books stacked haphazardly, an overflowing ashtray by the window. Miss Catherine's room, the younger daughter, is pristine, but cold somehow. No personal touches, no warmth, like a display in a shop window rather than a place where someone actually lives. By the time you've finished all the chambers, your arms are aching from carrying the heavy slop pail up and down the back stairs. The pail goes to the outdoor privy to be emptied properly, a job that falls to the hall boy, thank God. Even in the servant hierarchy, there's always someone below you. The rest of the morning blurs together. You help Mary with the bed making. Sheets pulled tight, hospital corners, not a wrinkle in sight. pillows fluffed and arranged just so, quilts straightened, curtains adjusted, water pitchers filled. The family's beds are remade completely every day, even though they've only been slept in for a few hours. Nothing here is done by halves. Between tasks, Mary continues your education. The rules, the do's and don'ts, the 1,000 small ways a servant can get into trouble without ever meaning to. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't look the family in the eye. Don't laugh in the corridors. Don't run, even if you're late. Don't carry anything without covering it with a cloth. Don't use the main stairs. Don't enter a room if you can hear voices inside. Don't touch the family's books. Don't touch the family's letters. Don't touch anything that isn't specifically part of your job. And above all, don't be seen. The perfect servant, Mary says, stripping the sheets from Miss Catherine's bed, is invisible. You do your work, and when you leave, it's like you were never there. The fire's lit, the room's clean, the water's fresh, but there's no sign of how it happened. Magic. Magic. That word again. The wealthy think their comfort appears by magic, and you are learning to be the magician they never see. The hours pass. Noon comes and goes. The servant's dinner is heavier than breakfast, a proper meal of meat and vegetables eaten quickly in the hall before the afternoon duties begin. You sit in your assigned spot at the lower end of the table, eating food that was probably on the family's plates last night, now reheated and served to the staff. Nobody complains. Nobody even thinks about complaining. This is the deal. This is the life. You work yourself half to death 6.5 days a week, and in return, you get a roof over your head and food in your belly. For millions of people outside these walls, that would be a dream. You try to remember that. Try to remind yourself of the village you left behind, the cold cottage with the leaking roof, the nights when there was nothing to eat but watered-down soup. This is better. This is security. This is a future of a sort. Even if that future looks like more of the same, stretching ahead of you for years and decades, rising before dawn, working until you drop, sleeping in a cold attic room, repeating it all again tomorrow, but you're getting ahead of yourself again. The afternoon is waiting. There are silver teaspoons that need polishing, apparently, dozens of them, and you've been told you'll be helping the parlour maid with the afternoon dusting in the formal rooms. Different tasks, same purpose. Keep the machine running, keep the magic happening, stay invisible. You push back from the table, legs aching, hands raw, mind spinning with all the rules and ranks and rituals you're trying to absorb. Just keep going. That's all you can do. Just keep going. The silver pantry is a small room off the butler's corridor, lined floor to ceiling with shelves, and on those shelves, arranged with military precision, sits more silver than you've ever seen in your life. Candlesticks, serving platters, soup tureens, tea sets, cruet stands, fish knives, cake forks, asparagus tongs. Things you don't even have names for, each one polished to such a high shine that you can see your own startled reflection staring back at you. "Sit," says Agnes, the parlour maid who's been assigned to supervise you. She's maybe 25, with quick hands and a permanent furrow between her brows. Watch first, then copy. She picks up a teaspoon from the pile on the table. It looks clean to you, spotless even. But Agnes holds it up to the light, squints at it, and shakes her head. See that? That dull spot near the handle? Fingerprint. From yesterday's tea service. Probably one of the footmen. She dips a soft cloth into a jar of thick pink paste and begins rubbing the spoon in small circular motions. This is plate powder, mixed fresh every morning. Jeweller's rouge, chalk and ammonia. Smells terrible. Works beautifully. The smell does hit you now, sharp and chemical, burning the inside of your nose. You'll get used to it, Agnes says. Eventually you stop noticing. She hands you a cloth and a spoon and nods toward the pile. every piece. No fingerprints, no tarnish, no spots. Mr. Finch inspects the silver before dinner service. If he finds so much as a smudge, we all hear about it. You pick up the spoon. Such a small thing, really. Just a bit of metal shape for scooping sugar. But in this house, even the smallest things carry enormous weight. A smudge on a teaspoon, a crease in a bedsheet, a fireplace that hasn't been properly blacked. These tiny failures add up. They reveal the hand behind the magic. They remind the family that their comfort requires effort, and that is absolutely unacceptable. So you polish. Spoon after spoon, fork after fork, your fingers cramping around the cloth, the ammonia burning your eyes. The pile shrinks slowly. Your reflection in the growing stack of finished pieces looks exhausted. Dark circles under the eyes, hair escaping from under your cap, a smear of something grey across one cheek. You barely recognise yourself anymore. "You're doing well," Agnes says, not looking up from her own work. "Better than the last girl. She cried on her second day and quit on her third. Couldn't handle the hours. You want to ask what happened to her, where she went, what becomes of girls who can't handle the hours. But you already know, don't you? The workhouse, the streets, a factory, if she's lucky, where the hours are shorter, but the machines can take your fingers. There are no good alternatives. That's why you stay. That's why everyone stays. The afternoon light is fading by the time you finish the silver. Your back is screaming. Your eyes are watering from the plate powder fumes. But the teaspoons are perfect. Every single one. Mr. Finch will have nothing to complain about." Agnes dismisses you with a nod. Kitchen next. Mrs. Hartley needs extra hands for dinner prep. Guests tonight, remember? Right. The guests. You'd almost forgotten. Some business associate of Lord Ashworth's coming for dinner with his wife, which means a formal meal, multiple courses, the good china, the best wine, an elaborate performance of wealth and taste, orchestrated entirely by the servants who will remain invisible throughout. The kitchen is chaos when you arrive. Mrs. Hartley, the cook, stands at the centre of it like a general commanding a battle. She's shouting orders at the kitchen maid, who's shouting orders at the scullery maid, who's too busy scrubbing pots to shout at anyone. Steam rises from half a dozen pots on the massive iron range. The air smells of roasting meat and simmering stock, and something sweet baking in the bread oven. And in the middle of it all, moving with surprising grace despite her considerable size, Mrs. Hartley orchestrates everything. A flick of her wrist sends the kitchen maid scurrying for more butter. A bark sends the scullery girl running for clean towels. She tastes, she stirs, she seasons, she adjusts, all without ever seeming to stop moving. You stand in the doorway uncertain. Nobody told you what to do once you got here. Mrs. Hartley spots you. Her eyes narrow. "You, new girl, can you peel potatoes?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then peel." She jerks her chin toward a mountain of potatoes sitting in a basket near the scullery door. "All of them. Thin skins, no eyes left behind. Annie will show you where." Annie. That must be the scullery maid. You find her in the scullery, up to her elbows in greasy dishwater, scrubbing at a pot that's bigger than she is. She's young. Younger than you even. Maybe 12 or 13, with raw red hands and a face that's permanently flushed from the heat of the water. "Potatoes are there," she says without looking up. "Peelings go in that bucket. Don't let Mrs. Hartley catch you wasting any flesh. She counts everything." Of course she does. Everyone in this house counts everything. You grab a knife and a potato and start peeling. The work is mindless, repetitive, soothing in its own way. Peel, turn, peel, turn, peel. The potato shrinks in your hand as the skin curls away in long brown ribbons. Behind you, Annie keeps scrubbing, the rhythm of her brush against the pot creating a kind of music. Scrub, scrub, dunk, repeat. How long have you been here, you ask, breaking the silence. Annie's brush pauses for just a moment. 18 months? Started when I was 11. Came from the workhouse. 11? She was 11 years old when she started this job, scrubbing pots and fetching coal and lighting fires before dawn, all at an age when you were still playing with dolls in your mother's cottage. Is it? You're not sure how to finish the question. Is it worth it? Is it bearable? Is it going to get better? It's a roof, Annie says simply. And food. 3 meals a day, more than I ever got before. Mrs. Hartley's hard, but she's fair. Doesn't hit like some cooks do. Doesn't steal our wages. Could be worse. Could be worse. That's the motto of every servant in every grand house across England. Could be worse. Could be the workhouse. Could be the streets. Could be the factories where children lose fingers to machinery and lungs to cotton dust. At least here you have a bed. At least here you eat. The bar is set so low it's practically underground. And still, somehow, you're grateful to clear it. You peel in silence for a while, the pile of potatoes slowly shrinking, the bucket of peeling slowly filling. From the kitchen you can hear Mrs. Hartley's voice, sharp and commanding, directing the elaborate dance of dinner preparation. The soup first, she's saying. Clear consomme. Has to be perfect. Lady Ashworth is showing off tonight. Then the fish course. Sole with white sauce. Then the roast. Beef, pink in the middle, or Lord Ashworth will have my head. Then the remove. Pheasant with bread sauce. Then the vegetables. Then the pudding. Trifle and fruit ices. Coffee to follow. 7 courses. For 4 people. Hours of preparation. Hours of cooking. Hours of plating and serving and clearing away. And at the end of it, most of the food will come back to the kitchen half-eaten, to be reheated and served to the servants tomorrow, or given to the poor at the back door. Waste, you think. Such waste. But then, what do you know? You've never sat at a table with 7 courses, never tasted sole or pheasant or trifle. The food that goes up those stairs exists in a world as foreign to you as the moon. You eat what comes back down, and you're grateful for it. The kitchen maid, a girl named Elsie with a round face and perpetually flour-dusted apron, appears in the scullery doorway. Mrs. Hartley wants those potatoes. Now. And you're to help me with a pastry once you're done. Pastry. You've never made pastry in your life. The bread at your mother's cottage was heavy and dark, made from whatever grain could be spared. Fancy pastry is as mysterious to you as the silver you polished this afternoon. But you nod and gather up the peeled potatoes in a large bowl. Into the kitchen, into the heat and chaos, dropping them on the work table where Mrs. Hartley is already reaching for them. Good, she grunts, the highest praise you've received all day. Now, pastry. Elsie is already at a marble slab, a mound of pale dough before her. She's working it with her hands, folding and pressing, in a motion that looks almost hypnotic. Puff pastry, she explains, for the vol au vents, appetizers for the soup course. Watch how I fold it. You need cold hands and a light touch. The butter has to stay in layers, see? That's what makes it puff up in the oven. You watch. You try to learn. When Elsie hands you a small piece of dough to practice with, you fold and press, trying to mimic her movements. The dough feels strange under your fingers, soft and cold and somehow alive. Not bad, Elsie says. You've got the hands for it. Keep practicing. It's the first compliment you've received about anything other than not being as terrible as the last girl. You hold on to it like a treasure. The afternoon wears on. The kitchen fills with smells that make your stomach growl, even though you just ate dinner a few hours ago. The roast beef goes into the oven, filling the air with the scent of rendering fat and searing meat. The consomme simmers on the back of the range, clear as glass and concentrated with flavour. The vegetables are prepped, the sauces started, the trifle assembled layer by careful layer, and through it all, Annie stays in the scullery, scrubbing. When a pot is used, she scrubs it. When a pan is dirtied, she scrubs it. When Mrs. Hartley needs clean utensils, Annie provides them. She is the bottom of the bottom, the lowest of the low, and her entire existence revolves around that stone sink and the endless parade of dirty dishes that passes through it. You help where you can, chopping onions until your eyes stream with tears, grinding spices in a mortar until your arm aches, running to the larder for butter, to the cellar for wine, to the pantry for sugar. Whatever Mrs. Hartley needs, you fetch. You're a pair of hands and a pair of feet, nothing more. Useful only as long as you're useful. By 6 o'clock the preparations are nearly complete. The soup is ready to be ladled. The fish is resting. The roast is coming out of the oven perfectly pink, just as Mrs. Hartley promised. The footmen have begun to appear, changed now into their formal livery, ready to carry the elaborate meal upstairs. You're not needed for the service itself. That's a job for the trained staff, the ones who know how to move silently, how to serve from the left and clear from the right, how to anticipate needs before they're spoken. You're just a housemaid, barely 3 weeks into the job. Your place is here, in the kitchen, watching the dishes come and go. But you catch a glimpse through the green baize door as it swings open to let a footman through. Just a flash of the corridor beyond, the one that leads to the dining room, candlelight, the glitter of crystal, the low murmur of conversation, a world of warmth and beauty just a few steps away, utterly unreachable. Then the door swings shut and you're back in the kitchen, surrounded by steam and shouting and the clatter of pots. "Don't stand there gaping," Mrs. Hartley snaps. "Help Annie with those dishes. The first course is done, which means the second course starts. Move." You move. The dishes start coming down almost immediately. Soup bowls, still warm, the dregs of consomme clinging to their rims. Then fish plates, delicate bones scattered across them. Then the large platter that held the roast, now empty except for a puddle of pink juice and a few overlooked scraps. Annie is already at the sink, hands moving in the water, scrubbing with a speed born of long practice. You grab a drying cloth and start on the dishes she's already washed, working as fast as you can to keep up. The kitchen becomes a blur of motion. Dishes down, dishes washed, dishes up. Food plated and sent through the green baize door. Empty plates returned, scraps saved, surfaces wiped clean before the next wave. It's an elaborate ballet, perfectly choreographed, and you're just one small dancer trying not to trip over your own feet. By the time the dessert goes up, your arms are shaking with fatigue. You've been working for 15 hours straight, with nothing but a few minutes here and there to shovel food into your mouth. The initial rush of nervous energy that carried you through the morning has long since faded, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion that makes even breathing feel like effort. But the work isn't done. It's never done. The guests don't leave until nearly 11. The family retires shortly after, their footsteps creaking on the floors above as they make their way to their bedrooms. Below stairs, the last of the dishes are being washed, the last of the pots scoured, the kitchen slowly returning to order. Mrs. Hartley releases you with a grunt and a wave of her hand. Breakfast at 5. Don't be late. You won't be late. You can't afford to be late. The back stairs seem steeper than they did this morning. Your legs wobble on each step. Your hands, raw from dishwater and plate powder, throb with every heartbeat. The attic room, when you finally reach it, is cold and dark and absolutely perfect. Mary is already in bed, her breathing slow and even. You don't bother with the basin of water. Don't bother changing into your nightdress. You just strip off your shoes and your apron and collapse onto the narrow mattress, pulling the thin blanket up to your chin. Tomorrow will be the same, and the day after, and the day after that. This is your life now. Invisible, essential, replaceable. And somewhere in the darkness, just before sleep claims you, you find yourself wondering about the woman whose chamber pot you emptied this morning. Lady Ashworth, with her lavender-scented room and her secret portrait. Does she ever think about the people who make her world run? Does she ever wonder who lights her fires, who empties her slops, who polishes her silver until it gleams? Probably not. That's the whole point, isn't it? You're not supposed to be thought about. You're supposed to be invisible. And you're getting very, very good at it. A week passes, then 2, then a month. You're starting to understand the rhythm of this place, the way the house breathes, the patterns of movement, the predictable moments of danger, the small windows of safety scattered throughout each day. Your body has adjusted to waking before dawn. Your hands have grown rough enough that the dishwater barely stings anymore. The cold attic room feels almost normal now, just another part of the landscape of your life. But understanding the rhythm is not the same as mastering it. That takes longer, much longer. It's a Tuesday afternoon in early February when you learn the most important lesson of all. You're carrying a bucket of coal up the back stairs, headed for the second floor. Lady Ashworth has complained that her sitting room is too cold, which means someone needs to add fuel to the fire, which means you've been sent running with a heavy bucket and strict instructions to be quick about it. The back stairs are narrow, steep, designed for servants to move quickly between floors without being seen by the family. There are 2 sets of them in Ashworth House, one near the kitchen and one near the family's bedrooms. You've learned to navigate them in near darkness, counting steps, memorizing which boards creak and which stay silent. But today, you're rushing. The bucket is heavier than usual. You're taking the steps 2 at a time, trying to make up for lost minutes, trying to avoid Mrs. Whitmore's disappointed frown. You don't hear the footsteps until it's too late. The door at the top of the stairs opens just as you reach the landing. Light floods in, and there, silhouetted against the glow of the family's corridor, stands Miss Catherine Ashworth. Time stops. She's 17, younger than you by a year, though you'd never know it from looking. Her dress is pale blue silk, trimmed with lace that probably cost more than your entire annual wages. Her hair is pinned up in an elaborate arrangement that must have taken Miss Perkins an hour to create. She looks like something from a painting, something from another world entirely, and she's staring right at you. Every lesson Mary has ever taught you floods through your mind at once. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't look them in the eye. Don't move until they've passed. Make yourself small. Make yourself invisible. Make yourself disappear. You press yourself against the wall of the stairwell, bucket clutched to your chest, eyes fixed firmly on the floor. Your heart is hammering so hard you're sure she can hear it. 3 seconds pass. 5. 10. You're blocking the door, Miss Catherine says. Her voice is flat, bored even, like you're a piece of furniture that's been left in an inconvenient location. I'm sorry, miss. The words come out as barely a whisper. I'll move, miss. You try to back down the stairs, but the bucket catches on the railing. Coal spills, black lumps bouncing down the steps, clattering against the wood, leaving dark smears on surfaces that someone, probably you, will have to clean. Miss Catherine sighs. It's a small sound, but it carries the weight of 1,000 disappointments. She steps over the scattered coal, her silk skirts brushing past you, close enough that you can smell her perfume. Something floral, expensive, completely foreign. And then she's gone, disappeared down the corridor toward the family's part of the house, and you're left standing in the stairwell with an empty bucket and a heart that won't stop racing. You don't cry. You want to, but you don't. There's no time for crying. There's only the coal to gather, the stairs to clean, the fire to tend. Mrs. Whitmore will hear about this. Of course she will. News travels fast below stairs, faster than anywhere else. By dinner, everyone will know that the new girl dropped coal in front of Miss Catherine, but the fire still needs feeding, so you gather what you can, shove it back in the bucket, and continue up the stairs on legs that feel like water. Lady Ashworth's sitting room is empty when you arrive. Thank God for small mercies. You kneel before the fireplace, add coal to the flames, and try to steady your breathing. The heat from the fire warms your face, dries the tears that have somehow leaked out despite your best efforts. This is the job. This is what you signed up for. Being invisible means being treated like you don't exist. And when you fail at being invisible, when you accidentally become visible, the best you can hope for is indifference. Miss Catherine didn't scold you, didn't report you, didn't even seem particularly bothered. She just wanted you out of her way. That's the reality. You are in their way, always. Your very existence in their spaces is an intrusion, tolerated only because someone needs to light the fires and empty the chamber pots. The moment you become visible, you become a problem. You finish with the fire and slip back through the servant's door, bucket in hand. The stairs still need cleaning, your afternoon still needs salvaging, and somewhere in this vast house, Mrs. Whitmore is probably already frowning. The cleaning takes 20 minutes, on your hands and knees with a brush and a damp cloth, scrubbing coal dust from wood that you polished just yesterday. The bucket goes back to the coal store, the brush goes back to the housemaid's closet, and you go back to your regular duties, hoping that somehow, miraculously, nobody noticed. Mary finds you in the linen room, folding sheets with hands that still haven't stopped shaking. "Heard about your adventure on the back stairs," she says quietly. You close your eyes. "How bad is it?" "Not as bad as you think." Miss Catherine didn't say anything to her mother, probably forgot about it the moment she reached the drawing room. Mary helps you smooth a crease from a pillowcase. But Mrs. Whitmore knows. She always knows. Am I going to be dismissed? The question hangs in the air between you. It's the question every servant asks themselves a dozen times a day. One wrong step, one careless moment, one piece of coal dropped in the wrong place at the wrong time. "No," Mary says finally, "not for this, not for a first offence, but she'll be watching you now, closer than before, so don't give her another reason." You nod, relief flooding through you. Not dismissed, not yet. You still have a roof over your head, food in your belly, a bed to sleep in tonight. The bar remains low, but you've cleared it once more. "The trick," Mary says, lowering her voice, "is to always know where they are. The family. If you know where they are, you can make sure you're somewhere else. That's what the bells are for, really. Not just to summon us. They tell us where the family is, what rooms they're using, where we need to avoid." She's right. The bells aren't just a communication system. They're a tracking system. When the drawing room bell rings, you know someone is in the drawing room. When the library bell stays silent, the library's probably empty. The whole house becomes a map of occupied and unoccupied spaces, and your job is to move through the unoccupied ones like a ghost. There are other ways too, Mary continues. The speaking tubes. Have you used them yet? You shake your head. You've seen the brass mouthpieces mounted on the walls in various places, but you haven't been trained on them yet. They connect different parts of the house. The family can speak directly into them, and we can hear them in the servants' areas. Mostly Mrs. Whitmore uses them to give orders without coming to find us. But they also carry sound from upstairs. If you're quiet, you can hear conversations, movements. It helps you know when to enter a room and when to stay away. The house is listening to itself, you realise. Through bells and tubes and the thin walls of the servants' corridors, information flows constantly. Where is the family? What do they need? When can we safely enter their spaces? The answers are always available if you know how to pay attention. You're starting to understand why servants who've been here for years can move through the house like phantoms. They've internalised this information flow. They know, without thinking, that Lord Ashworth takes his afternoon brandy in the study at 3 o'clock, that Lady Ashworth walks in the garden before lunch, weather permitting, that Miss Catherine practices piano from 2 until 4, which means the music room is occupied but the upstairs corridors are clear. It's a kind of surveillance turned inward. You watch them so that they never have to see you. That evening, you catch a glimpse of a different kind of servant life. Miss Perkins, the lady's maid, passes through the servants' hall on her way to the housekeeper's room. She doesn't sit with the lower servants anymore, hasn't for years. Her place is with the upper staff now in the pug's parlour, eating off the good dishes, but tonight she looks tired. More tired than you've ever seen anyone look who isn't covered in coal dust or elbow deep in dishwater. Lady Ashworth had a headache, someone whispers at your end of the table. Miss Perkins was up with her half the night, compresses and tonics and reading aloud until her voice gave out. Personal servants, that's what they call Miss Perkins and Mr. Crawford, the valet. They don't answer to the housekeeper or the butler, not really. They answer directly to their employers, Lady Ashworth and Lord Ashworth. Their loyalty, their time, their very thoughts belong to the people they serve. In some ways, they have it better than the rest of you. Their rooms are larger, located near the family's quarters so they can respond to needs at any hour. Their clothes are finer, often cast-offs from their employers' wardrobes. They travel when the family travels, seeing parts of the country, even parts of the world, that a housemaid will never glimpse. But in other ways they have it worse. They're never truly off duty. Miss Perkins is on call every hour of every day, ready to dress hair, mend clothes, apply cosmetics, offer comfort, keep secrets. She knows things about Lady Ashworth that no one else in this house knows. The intimate details of a woman's life, her health, her moods, her fears. That knowledge is a burden. Miss Perkins carries it alone, unable to share it with anyone, unable to put it down even when she sleeps. She is closer to Lady Ashworth than Lady Ashworth's own daughters, and she is utterly, completely isolated by that closeness. You watch her disappear through the door to the pug's parlour and wonder if you would trade places with her. The prestige, the better food, the nicer room, but also the loneliness, the weight of secrets, the knowledge that your entire existence is bound to one person's needs, one person's moods, one person's whims. No, you decide you wouldn't trade. Better to be one cog among many, replaceable but free. Better to have Mary in the bed next to yours, whispering jokes before sleep. Better to have Annie to talk to in the scullery, Elsie to learn from in the kitchen. Better to belong to the group, even at the bottom of it, than to float alone at the top. The meal ends. The servants scatter to their evening duties. You're assigned to help with the bedrooms again, turning down covers and filling water pitchers for the night. The family is still downstairs, lingering over their after-dinner coffee, so the upstairs corridors are safe for now. You work quickly, efficiently, with one ear always tuned to the bells. Drawing room, library, music room. The sounds of the family's evening, translated into brass vibrations that travel down through the walls. Miss Catherine's room is last on your list. You hesitate at the door, remembering this afternoon's encounter, the bored dismissal in her voice. But the room is empty. She's downstairs with her parents. You have nothing to fear from furniture and silk curtains. The bed is turned down, the fire is built up, fresh water in the pitcher, fresh towels on the washstand, everything perfect, everything invisible. And there, on the writing desk by the window, you see something that makes you pause. A letter, half written. The ink still wet, the pen abandoned beside it. You shouldn't look. You know you shouldn't look. What happens in the family's room stays in the family's rooms. You see nothing, hear nothing, remember nothing. But your eyes catch a phrase before you can turn away. I cannot bear another season. I would rather die than... The words stop there, unfinished. A confession interrupted. You back away from the desk like it's on fire. Your hands are shaking again. This is exactly the kind of thing Mary warned you about. The secrets, the glimpses into lives that aren't yours, the knowledge that weighs on you, that you can never share, that becomes your burden simply because you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Miss Catherine Ashworth, with her silk dresses and elaborate hair, would rather die than attend another season. Another round of balls and parties and marriage market displays. You don't know what to do with this information. You can't tell anyone, can't act on it, can't even think about it too hard without feeling like you're betraying something sacred. So you do what servants have always done. You bury it, deep down, in the place where all the other secrets go. The medicine on Lady Ashworth's nightstand, the overflowing ashtray in Master James's room, the cold, unlived-in feel of Miss Catherine's pristine bedroom. You see nothing, you hear nothing, you remember nothing. You finish your duties and slip back through the servants' door, leaving the family's world behind. The corridor is dark and narrow. The air smells like coal dust and floor polish. Your feet know the way back to the servants' hall without needing light. This is where you belong. In the shadows. In the spaces between. Tomorrow you will wake before dawn and do it all again. The fires, the chamber pots, the endless cleaning and carrying and folding and scrubbing. The careful dance of invisibility. The constant awareness of where the family is and where you need to not be. But tonight, just for a moment, you let yourself feel the weight of what you carry. All those secrets, all those glimpses, all those tiny pieces of other people's lives that accumulate in your memory like coal dust in your lungs. This is the price of service, not just the aching back and the raw hands and the 16-hour days, but this, the knowing, the seeing, the being present for moments you were never meant to witness. You carry their secrets and they never even notice. That, perhaps, is the loneliest part of all. March brings rain, endless, grey, relentless rain that drums against the attic windows and turns the streets outside into rivers of mud. The coal deliveries are late, the chimneys smoke, and everywhere in the house the damp creeps in like an uninvited guest. You've been at Ashworth House for 6 weeks now, long enough to know the patterns, long enough to anticipate Mrs. Whitmore's needs before she voices them, long enough to move through the back corridors without thinking, your feet finding the right path even in complete darkness. But not long enough to stop being afraid. The fear never really goes away. It lives in your chest like a small cold stone, always present, always weighing. Every time a bell rings unexpectedly, every time Mrs. Whitmore's footsteps approach, every time you enter a room and find someone already there, the fear whispers, this could be it. This could be the moment you make a mistake too big to forgive. You've seen what happens to servants who make those mistakes. There was a girl before you, not your immediate predecessor, the one who left because of Master James, but the one before that. Her name was Sarah, and she worked in this house for almost 2 years. Kitchen maid mostly. Helped Mrs. Hartley with the simpler dishes, kept the larder organised, made sure the pantry was stocked. One day, a silver spoon went missing. It was a small thing, really. One spoon out of dozens. The kind of thing that might have slipped behind a cabinet or been accidentally thrown out with the scraps. But Lord Ashworth noticed it was gone from his breakfast tray, and Lord Ashworth mentioned it to Mr. Finch, and Mr. Finch reported it to Mrs. Whitmore, and Mrs. Whitmore searched Sarah's room. They found the spoon under her mattress. Sarah swore she didn't put it there, swore on her mother's grave, on her own soul, on everything she held sacred, but it didn't matter. The spoon was found, the verdict was delivered. Sarah was dismissed without a character reference, her belongings bundled into a sack and handed to her at the back door. Mary told you this story on your second night in the attic room. A warning, she said, about how quickly things can change. Did she really steal it, you asked? Mary was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe someone put it there to get rid of her. We'll never know for certain. Someone put it there. The thought keeps you awake some nights. The idea that another servant, someone you work beside every day, someone you share meals with, might plant evidence to destroy you. It happens. Everyone knows it happens. Jealousy, rivalry, personal grudges. The simplest way to eliminate a competitor is to make them look like a thief. So you're careful. You never pick up anything that isn't explicitly yours. You never linger in rooms where valuables are kept. You never ever let yourself be alone with the silver. But the fear remains, because you can't control what other people do. You can't stop someone from slipping a candlestick into your apron pocket when you're not looking. You can't prove a negative. And in this house, suspicion falls downward, always downward, onto the people who have the least power to defend themselves. The footmen understand this better than anyone. You meet them properly for the first time during a rare quiet afternoon in late March. The family's away, visiting relatives in the country for a few days. The house feels different without them, lighter somehow. The servants move more freely, talk more openly, laugh in corridors where laughter is usually forbidden. There are 2 footmen at Ashworth House, William and George, both tall, both handsome, both hired specifically because they look impressive in livery. That's the job, really. Looking impressive, standing behind chairs at dinner parties, opening doors for guests, being decorative in a way that reflects well on the household. William is the senior footman, 24 years old, with dark hair and the kind of posture that suggests he's never slouched a day in his life. He's been here for 3 years, works directly under Mr. Finch, and carries himself with the quiet confidence of someone who knows exactly where he stands in the hierarchy. George is newer, 19, sandy-haired, with a quick smile that he deploys too often for Mrs. Whitmore's taste. He arrived 6 months before you did, still learning the ropes, still making the small mistakes that mark him as inexperienced. They're both in the servants' hall when you come down for your afternoon break, playing cards at the long table. A forbidden activity, technically, but with the family away, the rules have loosened just slightly. "New girl," George says, looking up with that quick smile. "Come join us. We need a third for whist." You hesitate. Mary's warning echoes in your mind. Don't get too friendly with the footmen. But Mary isn't here right now. She's upstairs, taking advantage of the quiet to catch up on mending, and the afternoon stretches ahead of you, empty and dull. "I don't know how to play," you admit. "We'll teach you." George pulls out a chair, gestures for you to sit. "It's easy. William's terrible at it anyway." William snorts but doesn't argue. He shuffles the cards with practiced ease, his long fingers making the motion look effortless. Ignore him. He's won exactly twice since he started here, and he won't stop talking about it. You sit. You learn. The game is more complicated than George promised, but you start to get the hang of it after a few hands. The afternoon passes in a blur of cards and conversation. the kind of easy talk that happens between people who share a peculiar kind of life. George tells you about his family in Sussex. 3 sisters, all older, all married. His father was a valet before his hands got too shaky to tie a proper cravat. Service runs in the blood, he says. You either escape it or you embrace it. William is quieter, more guarded. He mentions a mother in London, a brother who went to sea, but he doesn't elaborate. There's something careful about the way he talks, the way he watches, like he's always calculating, always measuring. So, George says, dealing another hand, has anyone warned you about Master James yet? The question lands like a slap. You fumble your cards, nearly drop them. George grins, clearly pleased with himself for getting a reaction. I'll take that as a yes. Mary mentioned something, you say carefully. She said there was a girl before me, the one who left because of him. William and George exchange a look. Something passes between them, some shared knowledge that you're not privy to. Her name was Ellen, William says after a moment. She was a housemaid, good at her job, quiet, kept to herself mostly. He pauses, stares at his cards. Master James took a liking to her. You wait. The story hangs in the air, unfinished. It's not complicated, George says, his smile gone now. Rich young men and servant girls, you know how it goes. He cornered her in the linen room one evening, made it clear what he wanted. She said no, he didn't like that. Your stomach turns. You think about the mornings you've spent alone in the family's bedrooms, the empty corridors, the closed doors behind which anything could happen. What did she do? She went to Mrs. Whitmore, William says, reported him, thought the housekeeper would protect her. And? Another look between them, heavier this time. Mrs. Whitmore told Lady Ashworth. Lady Ashworth told Lord Ashworth. And Lord Ashworth told Ellen that she was dismissed for spreading malicious rumours about his son. William's voice is flat, emotionless, like he's reciting a news article. She left the next day. No reference, no wages for the month. Just her things in a bag and the back door closed behind her. The cards in your hand feel suddenly heavy. You set them down on the table, no longer interested in the game. That's not fair, you say, and immediately feel foolish. Of course it's not fair. Nothing about this life is fair, but the words are out before you can stop them. Fair doesn't enter into it, George says quietly. We're servants, they're family. When it's their word against ours, we lose. Every time. You think about Miss Catherine's unfinished letter. I would rather die than... You know something about the family that they probably don't want known. But who would believe you if you told anyone? Who would take your side against the word of a gentleman's daughter? No one. The answer is no one. So what do, you ask? How do you stay safe? William gathers up the cards, begins shuffling again. You learn to disappear. You learn to never be alone in a room with any of them, especially the young master. You learn to have witnesses for everything, alibis for every moment of your day. And if that's not enough, he looks at you, and for the first time you see something vulnerable behind those careful eyes. Then you run, before they can dismiss you, before they can ruin your name. You find another position, any position, and you get out. Has anyone ever fought back? George laughs, but there's no humour in it. Where would we go? The courts? The police? They'd laugh us out of the station. We have no power here. None. The only thing we can do is survive. Survive. The word echoes through the empty servants' hall. This is what it comes down to. Always. Not thriving. Not building a life. Just surviving. Getting through each day without being dismissed. Without being ruined. Without ending up in the workhouse or on the streets. The card game is over. Nobody says so explicitly, but the mood has shifted, the easy camaraderie replaced by something heavier, You excuse yourself, mumble something about duties, climb the back stairs to the attic. Mary is there, needle in hand, mending a torn petticoat. She looks up when you enter, reads something in your face. What happened? I talk to the footmen. You sit on your bed, suddenly exhausted. About Ellen. Mary's needle pauses. Ah. You could have told me more, warned me properly. I told you to be careful around Master James. What more was there to say? She's right in a way. The warning was clear enough, but hearing the full story, understanding what happened to Ellen, how quickly and completely she was destroyed. Do you think about leaving, you ask? Mary resumes her stitching. Sometimes, everyone does. But where would I go? I've been in service since I was 14. This is all I know. At least here I have a bed and 3 meals a day and people I can talk to. The same reasoning Annie gave you in the scullery. Could be worse. At least it's a roof. The mantra of the trapped, repeated so often it starts to sound like wisdom. I keep thinking about the spoon, you say. Sarah, what if someone does that to me? Then you'll be dismissed, and you'll find another position, and you'll start over somewhere else. Mary ties off her thread, bites it clean. It's not the end of the world. It feels like it, but it's not. I've been dismissed before. Did I ever tell you that? You shake your head, surprised. Mary seems so competent, so permanent. The idea that she was once thrown out of a household is hard to imagine. I was 17, worked in a house in Yorkshire. The cook accused me of stealing bacon from the larder. I hadn't, but they found grease on my apron, and that was enough. She shrugs. No reference. I walked to the next town, found a position in a tavern, worked there for 2 years, saved enough for a train ticket to London, applied to every house that would have me. Ashworth took me on as a junior maid. That was 11 years ago. 11 years, you repeat. Half your life, more or less. An entire existence shaped by one false accusation and the slow, painful climb back from ruin. The point is, you survive. Whatever happens, you survive. You find a way. That's what we do. She sets aside the mended petticoat, picks up another. Now stop worrying about things that haven't happened yet. The family's back tomorrow, which means early start, which means we both need sleep. Save the existential crisis for your day off. It's meant to be comforting, and in a strange way it is. Mary has been through the worst and come out the other side. If she can do it, maybe you can too. You lie back on your narrow bed, staring at the sloped ceiling. The rain has stopped finally. Through the small window you can see a few stars emerging from the clouds. The same stars that shine over the family's part of the house, over the silk-draped bedrooms and the gaslit corridors. The same stars that shine over the workhouse, the factories, the streets where dismissed servants end up when their luck runs out. You're so small in this vast machine, one replaceable part among many. But you are here. You have survived 6 weeks, and tomorrow you will survive another's day. That will have to be enough. Sleep doesn't come easily. Your mind keeps circling back to Ellen, to Sarah, to all the nameless servants who came before you and disappeared without a trace. The house has swallowed so many people. Their footsteps wore these same stairs. Their hands polished this same silver. Their secrets filled this same silence. And now they're gone, scattered to the winds, and no one remembers them except in whispered warnings passed from one servant to the next. Somewhere in the house, a clock strikes midnight. The sound travels up through the floors, muffled but persistent. 12 chimes. A new day beginning, though it won't feel real until dawn. Mary's breathing has slowed to the steady rhythm of deep sleep. She can do that. Fall asleep within minutes of closing her eyes. Years of practice, she says. When you only get 6 hours, you learn not to waste any of them lying awake. You haven't learned that skill yet. Your body is exhausted, bone-tired from the day's work, but your mind refuses to quiet. It keeps replaying the card game, the conversation, the look that passed between William and George when Ellen's name came up. There are so many ways to be destroyed in this life. Theft accusations, romantic entanglements, a broken dish, a burned roast, a word spoken too loudly in the wrong corridor. The margins are so narrow, 1 foot on either side of the line, and the line itself is invisible, shifting, defined entirely by people who have no reason to care whether you cross it. You think about your mother, back in the village. The last letter you sent was 3 weeks ago. A cheerful thing, full of lies. The work is going well. The other servants are kind. The family is respectable. You didn't mention the cold attic room, the raw hands, the fear that lives in your chest like a second heart. She would worry if she knew the truth, and there's nothing she could do about it anyway. This is the life you chose, the only life available to girls like you, unless you wanted to spend your days in a factory losing fingers to machinery, or on a farm breaking your back in fields that would never belong to you. Service is supposed to be better, safer, more respectable. And maybe it is, compared to the alternatives. But safe isn't the same as good. Respectable isn't the same as free. The stars outside your window have multiplied while you've been lying here. A whole field of them now, scattered across the clearing sky. Tomorrow the family returns. Tomorrow the house snaps back to attention. Every servant in their place. Every rule enforced. Tomorrow you will be invisible again. A pair of hands and a pair of feet, moving through spaces you don't belong in, carrying secrets you didn't ask for. But tonight, just for these few hours, you are yourself, whoever that is, whoever that might become. You close your eyes and try to picture a different life, a cottage somewhere with a garden, a husband maybe if you're lucky, children who don't have to go into service, who can learn a trade or stay in school, a future that doesn't involve backstairs and chamber pots and the constant grinding fear of dismissal. It's a nice dream, probably impossible, but nice. You hold on to it as sleep finally begins to pull you under. The last thing you're aware of is the sound of your own breathing, slow and steady, matching Mary's rhythm without meaning to. 2 hearts beating in the darkness, 2 small lives waiting for dawn. April arrives like a held breath finally released. The rain eases, the days grow longer, and through the high windows of Ashworth House, pale spring sunlight filters down into corridors that have been grey and cold for months. Even the servants' quarters feel different, less oppressive. The attic room is almost pleasant now, cool in the mornings instead of freezing, and you've started leaving the small window cracked open at night to let in the smell of the garden below. You've been here 3 months, a quarter of a year, long enough that the routines have become muscle memory, your body moving through the patterns of each day without conscious thought. Wake at 5, wash, dress, fires, chamber pots, breakfast, cleaning, lunch, more cleaning, dinner service, bed, repeat. The sameness of it could drive you mad if you let it. But there's a strange comfort in the repetition too. Knowing what comes next, knowing what's expected, knowing that if you just keep your head down and do your work, each day will pass without incident. Most days anyway. Tonight is different. Tonight the Ashworths are hosting a dinner party. 12 guests plus the family. 16 people to feed, to serve, to impress. Mrs. Hartley's been in the kitchen since dawn, barking orders at anyone who comes within earshot. Mr. Finch has been polishing his already immaculate shoes and checking his pocket watch every few minutes. Even Mrs. Whitmore seems tense, her usual stern expression sharpened to something almost anxious. The preparation started yesterday, really. The silver was polished twice. The crystal was washed and re-washed until it sparkled like ice. The dining room was cleaned from ceiling to floor, every surface dusted, every candlestick straightened, every chair positioned exactly 18 inches from the table edge. Mr. Finch measured, with an actual ruler. The menu was planned a week ago, 8 courses, each one more elaborate than the last. Oysters to start, then soup, then fish, then a sorbet to cleanse the palate, then meat, 2 kinds with vegetables, then a savoury course, then dessert, then fruit and cheese. 8 separate acts in a culinary drama that will unfold over 3 hours of careful choreographed service. Lady Ashworth has been fretting over the seating arrangement for days. Who sits next to whom? Which guests can be trusted to make conversation? Which ones need to be kept apart because of some ancient social slight that nobody else remembers or cares about? The place cards have been rewritten 3 times. A dinner party is a performance. You understand that now. Everything the family does is a kind of theatre, and the servants are the stage hands, the prop masters, the invisible hands that make the magic happen. But a dinner party is the grandest production of all. 16 actors on stage, dozens more behind the scenes, and the entire thing choreographed down to the second. Your role tonight is small. You'll help in the kitchen during the early preparation, then assist with the clearing once the meal is underway. The actual service, the carrying of dishes and pouring of wine, that's for the footmen. William and George have been practicing their movements all afternoon, walking through the dining room with empty trays, marking their positions, rehearsing the ballet they'll perform when the guests arrive. Left side for serving, William recites, adjusting his pristine white gloves. Right side for clearing. Never reach across, never make eye contact, never speak unless spoken to. And if someone speaks to you, George asks, though he already knows the answer. Short answers. Yes, sir. No, madam. Certainly, sir. Nothing more. Your furniture. Beautiful, useful furniture. Beautiful furniture. That's what footmen are, really. Hired for their height and their looks, dressed in elaborate livery that matches the house's colours, positioned like ornaments around the room. Lord Ashworth reportedly paid extra for William because he's exactly 6 feet tall, the perfect height for a senior footman. George, at 5'11", had to wear specially built-up shoes for his first month until they could find boots that made up the difference. The guests begin arriving at 7. You hear them from the kitchen, the clatter of carriages in the drive, the murmur of voices in the entrance hall. Mr. Finch is up there, greeting each arrival with grave formality, directing them to the drawing room where Lady Ashworth waits with sherry and small talk. Down here, the chaos intensifies. Mrs. Hartley is a whirlwind of motion, tasting and adjusting, shouting for more salt, less cream. Where is that saffron I asked for 20 minutes ago? The kitchen maids scurry around her like planets orbiting an angry sun. Steam rises from every surface. The heat is incredible, waves of it rolling off the massive iron range. You're stationed at the scullery door ready to run whatever needs running. Fresh towels, clean spoons, a replacement dish when one gets dropped. Annie is at her usual post by the sink, but tonight she has help. 2 extra girls brought in from an agency to handle the mountain of dishes that will soon come cascading down from above. At 7:30, Mr. Finch appears in the kitchen doorway. His face is calm, but his eyes are sharp, taking in every detail. Soup in 10 minutes, he says. Is the consomme ready? Ready and waiting, Mrs. Hartley replies without looking up from the sauce she's stirring. Mr. Finch nods once and disappears back up the stairs. The countdown has begun. You watch through the crack of the service door as the first course goes up. William leads, carrying the great silver tureen as if it weighs nothing at all. George follows with the stack of warmed bowls. They move in perfect synchronization, their steps matched, their faces blank. The door swings shut behind them, and you're left in the corridor, straining to hear what happens on the other side. Silence, then the soft clink of ladle against bowl, murmured thanks from the guests, the gentle sound of spoons against china. The first course has begun. In the kitchen, there's no time to rest. The fish course is already being plated, delicate fillets of sole arranged on beds as green sauce. The meat course waits in the warming oven, the lamb pink and perfect. The vegetables are being finished, glazed carrots and creamed spinach and tiny roasted potatoes no bigger than your thumb. Course after course goes up the stairs. You lose track of time, lost in the rhythm of fetch and carry, clean and stack. The dishes come back down in waves, scraped nearly clean by guests with healthy appetites. Good, Mrs. Hartley mutters. They're eating. That means it's good. Somewhere around the fourth course, you're sent up to help with the wine. The dining room is everything you expected and nothing you imagined. Crystal chandeliers blazing with dozens of candles, silver and china gleaming on white linen. The guests arrayed around the table in their evening finest, the women dripping with jewels, the men stuffed into tailcoats that probably cost more than your father earned in a year. The table itself is a work of art. White damask cloth, pressed to perfection, cascading to the floor in precise folds. At each place setting, a small forest of glasses, each one for a different wine. The napkins are folded into elaborate shapes, swans or fans or something architectural that must have taken Mary hours to create. Fresh flowers run down the centre, hothouse roses and lilies that filled the house with their scent when they arrived this morning. Candelabras stand at intervals, their flames casting everything in soft golden light. The effect is magical, otherworldly, like stepping into a painting from another century, and in the centre of it all, Lord Ashworth, holding court like a king. You don't look at any of them directly. You've learned that lesson. Your eyes stay fixed on the middle distance as you collect empty wine bottles and replace them with full ones from the silver bucket Mr. Finch has prepared. Red for the meat course, white for the fish, champagne for the toast. The butler stands near the sideboard, conducting everything with tiny gestures. A lifted finger sends George to refill a glass. A slight nod tells William to clear the plates from the left side of the table. An almost imperceptible shake of his head stops a maid from entering at the wrong moment. He sees everything, anticipates everything, corrects problems before they become visible to the guests. You watch him work, and it's like watching a composer lead an orchestra. Every movement has meaning. Every pause is deliberate. The guests see nothing but smooth, seamless service. They have no idea that behind that smoothness lies years of practice, countless small disasters averted, an entire language of signals passing between butler and footmen and maids. There's a moment, midway through the fish course, when something almost goes wrong. George reaches for a glass at the same instant the guest beside it gestures with her hand. Their paths are about to collide, but Mr. Finch sees it coming, makes a tiny sound in his throat, and George freezes mid-reach. The guest's hand sweeps past harmlessly. George completes his movement a second later, and nobody at the table notices anything at all. This is what mastery looks like, you realise. Not just knowing the rules, but embodying them so completely that following them becomes as natural as breathing. Mr. Finch has been doing this for 30 years. Every dinner party, every house guest, every elaborate meal has been another rehearsal, another refinement. He is the hidden engine that makes the whole performance possible. You slip back down to the kitchen with your empty bottles, grateful to escape the pressure of the dining room. Up there, every movement matters. Every mistake is visible. Down here, in the steam and chaos, you can breathe. The meal winds down around 10 o'clock. Dessert goes up, a towering construction of meringue and cream that makes Annie gasp when she sees it. Coffee follows, then port for the gentlemen as the ladies retire to the drawing room. By 11, the last guests have departed, their carriages rattling away into the night. The family retreats to their bedrooms, exhausted from hours of social performance, and below stairs the real work begins. The dishes are endless, mountains of china, hills of crystal, rivers of silver that all need washing, drying, polishing, putting away. The extra girls from the agency work alongside Annie, their hands red and raw in the hot water. You dry until your arms ache, then dry some more. Mrs. Hartley sits in her chair by the range, finally still after 12 hours of constant motion. Her eyes are closed, but she's not asleep, just resting, gathering strength for tomorrow, when she'll have to do it all again for the family's regular meals, though nothing as elaborate as tonight. The kitchen maids are scrubbing surfaces, mopping floors, putting the room back in order. Tomorrow morning, when Mrs. Hartley arrives at 6, everything will be spotless, ready to start again. You finish with the last of the wine glasses around midnight. Your back is screaming, your feet have gone numb, but the job is done. The performance was a success. Nobody dropped anything, spilled anything, said anything wrong. The invisible machinery of the household functioned perfectly, and the guests never saw a single gear. Mr. Finch appears in the kitchen doorway. He looks tired too, though he'd never admit it. His perfect posture has slipped slightly, his shoulders not quite as square as they were this morning. "Well done," he says. 2 words, that's all. But from Mr. Finch, 2 words is practically a standing ovation. Mrs. Whitmore releases you for the night. The back stairs feel even steeper than usual, but you climb them anyway, 1 foot in front of the other, until you reach the attic. Mary is already there, face down on her pillow, still wearing her work dress. "How was it?" she mumbles without lifting her head. "Long." She's asleep before you can say anything else. You stand by the window for a moment, too tired to move, too wired to lie down just yet. The garden below is silver in the moonlight, the spring flowers glowing pale against the dark soil. Somewhere out there, in houses all across London, other servants are finishing their own dinner parties, climbing their own back stairs, collapsing into their own narrow beds. An army of invisible people, all keeping the same secrets, all carrying the same burdens. You think about the guests you saw tonight, the glittering women, the pompous men. Did any of them wonder who cooked their food, who poured their wine, who washed the crystal glasses they drank from and will wash again tomorrow? Probably not. That's the whole point of service, to make comfort appear effortless, to make luxury seem natural, to make the work invisible so that the people who benefit from it never have to think about it. You're good at being invisible now, maybe too good. Sometimes you catch yourself moving through the house like you're not really there, like you're a ghost haunting halls that don't belong to you. The person you were before, the girl with dreams and opinions and a voice, she feels far away, buried under layers of yes ma'am and no sir and certainly I'll see to it right away. But she's still there. You can feel her sometimes in the quiet moments, in the space between one task and the next. She's waiting, patient as stone, for the day when you can be visible again. That day seems very far away right now. You pull off your shoes, your apron, your cap. The narrow bed creaks as you lie down. The pillow is flat and lumpy, the blanket thin. But after 16 hours on your feet, it feels like heaven. Outside, an owl calls somewhere in the garden. A lonely sound, but not a sad one. Just a creature going about its business in the dark, doing what owls do, living its owl life. You wonder what that would be like, to just exist without having to perform, to hunt and sleep and fly without anyone watching, judging, measuring your worth by how invisible you can make yourself. The moonlight creeps across the floor as you lie there, painting silver squares on the bare wood. Your breathing slows, your muscles unclench one by one. The ache in your feet fades to a dull throb. The tension in your shoulders melts into the thin mattress beneath you. You think about the dinner party. All those hours of preparation, all that careful choreography, all that effort and anxiety and exhausted work. And for what? A few hours of pleasure for 16 people who will forget about it by next week. Who will move on to the next party, the next performance, the next evening of glitter and wine and food they barely taste. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point isn't whether they remember. Maybe the point is that it happened at all. That for one evening everything was perfect. The soup was hot. The wine was cold. The flowers were fresh and the candles were bright and the silver gleamed like captured moonlight. You made that happen. You and Mary and Annie and Mrs. Hartley and Mr. Finch and all the others. You created something beautiful even if nobody saw you do it. Even if nobody will ever know your name. There's a kind of pride in that. A quiet pride, hidden away like everything else in your life, but real, solid, yours. Tomorrow there will be more fires to light, more chamber pots to empty, more silver to polish and floors to scrub and bells to answer. The great machine of the household will grind on, and you will be one small part of it, turning with the rest. But for now, just for these few hours, you can rest. The moon moves across the sky. The house settles into silence, and somewhere in the darkness of the attic, between one breath and the next, you finally fall asleep. The first Sunday in May, Mrs. Whitmore grants you a half day. You almost don't believe it when she tells you. Half days are rare, precious things, hoarded and distributed like gold coins. Most servants get one a month if they're lucky. Some houses give half of Sunday after church, but Ashworth House isn't most houses. Here, time off is earned through months of flawless service, and even then, it can be revoked on a whim. But today, for whatever reason, Mrs. Whitmore has decided you've earned 4 hours of freedom. From 2 o'clock until 6. 4 hours to do whatever you want, go wherever you please, be whoever you choose to be. Mary helps you get ready. She lends you her good shawl, the one with the blue embroidery that she saves for special occasions. It's nicer than anything you own, soft wool instead of rough cotton, and it makes your plain grey dress look almost respectable. "Where will you go?" she asks, pinning your hair into something more flattering than your usual work style. You haven't thought about it. The question itself feels strange, like being asked what you'd do if you could fly. For 3 months your world has been the walls of Ashworth House, the attic, the kitchens, the family's bedrooms, the back stairs. You've forgotten that anything exists beyond them. "I don't know," you admit. "Maybe just walk." Mary smiles. Walk sounds nice. Get some air. Remember what the sun looks like. The sun. Yes. That yellow thing in the sky that you glimpse through windows but rarely feel on your face. Today you'll feel it. Today you'll stand in the open air and breathe something that doesn't smell like coal dust or floor polish or the family's leftover dinner. At 2 o'clock exactly, you slip out the servants' entrance at the back of the house. The door closes behind you with a soft click, and suddenly you're outside. Actually outside. The afternoon sun is warm on your face, the sky a pale blue streaked with thin clouds. The garden smells of earth and growing things, and somewhere nearby a bird is singing. You stand there for a moment just breathing, in and out, clean air, fresh air, air that belongs to no one, that doesn't have to be earned or measured or parcelled out in careful doses. Then you start walking. The streets of London are overwhelming at first. So many people, so much noise, so much movement. Carriages rattle past on the cobblestones. Street vendors shout their wares. Children run and shriek and chase each other through the crowds. After the controlled silence of Ashworth House, it feels like stepping into chaos. But it's a good chaos, a human chaos. These people aren't servants. They're not performing. They're just living their lives, out in the open, without anyone watching or judging or waiting for them to make a mistake. You drift toward Hyde Park. It's not far, maybe 20 minutes on foot, and Mary mentioned that servants often go there on their days off. The park is free, the paths are pleasant, and if you're lucky you might see the fashionable folk promenading in their carriages. The gates are open, you walk through, and the noise of the city fades behind you. Trees line the paths, their leaves bright green with spring growth. Grass stretches away on either side, dotted with people sitting and talking and enjoying the sunshine. A lake glitters in the distance, and you can see small boats moving across its surface. You find a bench near the water and sit down. Just sit. No task waiting. No bell about to ring. No Mrs. Whitmore appearing around a corner to assign you work. Just you and the sun and the gentle lap of water against the shore. It's almost unbearable how good it feels. Your body doesn't quite know what to do with itself. Your hands keep reaching for tasks that aren't there. Your ears keep listening for bells that aren't ringing. It takes almost an hour before the tension starts to leave your shoulders, before your breathing slows to something like normal. A duck paddles past, followed by a line of fuzzy ducklings, 6 of them, fluffy and golden, peeping softly as they swim. You watch them until they disappear around a bend in the lake. Such simple creatures, they don't worry about bells or references or being dismissed without warning. They just swim and eat and follow their mother and exist. Then you watch the clouds. They drift overhead, lazy and white, shaped like nothing and everything. That one could be a ship. That one a mountain. That one looks almost like Mrs. Hartley's face when the soup is about to boil over. You laugh out loud at that. Actually laugh. The sound startles you. When did you last laugh? Not the careful, quiet laughter of the servants' hall, the kind that stops the moment a superior enters the room. But real laughter. Free laughter. Then you watch the people walking past, couples arm in arm, families with children, old men with newspapers tucked under their arms. A nursemaid pushes a pram along the path, the baby inside cooing at the sky. 2 young men walk together, deep in conversation about something that makes them gesture wildly. A woman in a purple dress reads a novel on a bench across the lake, completely absorbed in whatever world the pages contain. Nobody looks at you. Nobody knows you're a servant. In your borrowed shawl, with your hair pinned up nicely, you could be anyone. A shop girl on her day off. A young wife waiting for her husband. A woman of modest means, enjoying a spring afternoon. The anonymity is intoxicating. For 4 hours you don't have to be invisible. You can just be. Time passes differently out here. Slower somehow. More gently. The sun moves across the sky, and you barely notice. You buy a penny bun from a vendor near the park gates, eat it slowly, savouring every bite. Real food, chosen by you, eaten at your own pace. It tastes like freedom. Around 4 o'clock you start walking again. Not toward the house, not yet. Just walking, following paths you've never seen before. Discovering corners of the city that exist beyond the narrow world of service. You pass a church with its doors open, organ music drifting out into the street, a bookshop with dusty volumes piled in the window, a tea room where women in fine dresses sit at small tables, laughing over cups of something expensive, a toy shop where a little girl presses her nose against the glass, staring at a doll in a blue dress. These places have always been here. All these lives, happening simultaneously with yours, just beyond the walls of the house where you light fires and empty chamber pots. The world is so much bigger than the back stairs. The thought is both comforting and terrifying. Comforting because it means there's more than this. Terrifying because you might never reach it. A flower seller catches your eye as you pass. An old woman with a basket of violets, their purple petals bright against the green leaves. Penny a bunch, love. Pretty flowers for a pretty girl. You don't have many pennies to spare. Your wages are small, and most of them go home to your mother. But today feels special. Today feels like it deserves marking somehow. You buy a bunch. The old woman tucks them into your hand with a gap-toothed smile. There you go, love. Enjoy your Sunday. Enjoy your Sunday. Such a simple phrase. Such an impossible luxury. You carry the violets back toward Ashworth House, taking the long way, squeezing every minute out of your remaining freedom. The streets grow quieter as you approach the wealthy neighbourhood. The houses grow larger, the people grow fewer. By the time you reach the servants' entrance, the sun is starting to sink toward the rooftops, painting everything gold. You pause at the door, just for a moment, taking one last breath of the outside air, one last look at the sky. The world out here will keep turning while you're inside. The sun will set and rise again. The flower sellers will call their wares. The ducks will swim their endless circles on the lake. And you'll be in there, in the half-darkness of the back corridors, invisible and essential and utterly removed from all of it. The door feels heavier than it did when you left. You push through it, and the familiar smells wrap around you like a shroud. Coal and polish and cooking meat. The sounds too, the distant clatter of pots, the murmur of voices, the creak of floorboards overhead. You're back. The spell is broken. You're a servant again. But you still have the violets. You carry them up to the attic, moving quietly through the back corridors, and find an old jam jar to put them in. There's no good place for flowers in your tiny room, so you set them on the windowsill, where they catch the last of the evening light. Mary comes in as you're arranging them. She's been working all afternoon, covering your duties while you were gone, and she looks tired. But she smiles when she sees the flowers. Pretty, she says. Where'd you get them? Flower seller near the park. A penny. A whole penny on flowers. She shakes her head, but she's still smiling. You're learning to be a proper Londoner. You sit together on your beds, facing each other across the narrow space. The violets glow purple on the windowsill. The evening light is soft and warm. Was it good? Mary asks. Your half day? You think about the park, the ducks, the penny bun, the anonymity of the crowded streets, the feeling of being just another person in the world instead of an invisible hand behind the scenes. It was good, you say. Really good. First one always is. Mary pulls off her shoes, wiggles her toes. Gets harder after that. You start wanting it too much, counting the days until the next one, resenting the work that keeps you from it. Is that what happened to you? It's what happens to everyone eventually. You have to find a way to make peace with it. Otherwise the wanting eats you alive. You're quiet for a moment thinking about that. The wanting. You felt it today, didn't you? The desperate wish to stay out there, in the sun, in the crowds, in the world. The reluctance to come back through that heavy door. How do you make peace with it, you ask? Mary considers the question. She's been in service for 11 years. If anyone knows the answer, she does. You find the good parts, she says finally, even here, even in the work. The good parts exist if you look for them. A job done well, a compliment from Mrs. Whitmore, a laugh in the servants' hall, a bunch of violets on the windowsill. She nods toward your flowers. You hold on to those. You let them be enough. Let them be enough. It sounds so simple. It probably isn't. But sitting here, With the evening light fading and the violets glowing and Mary's voice soft and familiar in the quiet room, you can almost believe it. You can almost see a life where this is enough, where the small joys outweigh the endless labour, where the friendships matter more than the fear. Almost. The supper bell rings from somewhere below. Time to go back to work. Time to return to the machine. But you take one more moment first. One more breath of freedom. The violets really are pretty, you think. Worth every penny. Then you stand, smooth down your dress, and follow Mary down the back stairs. The evening passes quietly. Supper service is simple tonight. Just the family, no guests. You help with the clearing, then join the other servants in the hall for your own meal. The food is plain but filling. Shepherd's pie, made from yesterday's lamb, bread and butter, weak tea. Annie sits beside you, her small body still damp from washing dishes. She's been promoted, sort of. Mrs. Hartley has started teaching her to do simple cooking tasks, which means she spends slightly less time at the sink and slightly more time learning actual skills. "I made the gravy today," she whispers, nodding toward your plate. "All by myself. Mrs. Hartley only corrected me twice. You taste the gravy. It's good. Rich and savoury, with just a hint of something you can't quite identify." "Rosemary," Annie says proudly. "Mrs. Hartley's secret. Just a tiny bit. Nobody knows except her and now me." You smile at her. This girl who came from the workhouse at 11, who spent her days elbow deep in greasy water, is becoming a cook. Slowly, painfully, one pot of gravy at a time, but becoming nonetheless. "How long until you're a proper kitchen maid?" you ask. Annie shrugs, but there's hope in her eyes. "Mrs. Hartley says maybe by Christmas, if I keep learning, if I don't mess up." She lowers her voice even further. "I want to be a cook someday, a real cook, with my own kitchen. It's such a big dream for such a small girl. Her own kitchen, staff to supervise, menus to plan, a life where she creates instead of just cleans." "You will be," you tell her. And in this moment, watching her thin face glow with ambition, you believe it. Maybe that's what Mary meant. About finding the good parts, Annie's gravy, the violets on the windowsill, the memory of sunlight on your face. After supper, there's a bit of time before bed. Mrs. Whitmore doesn't usually assign work on Sunday evenings, a small mercy that everyone guards jealously. The servants scatter to their various pastimes. Some play cards in the hall, some read by candlelight, some just sit and talk, savouring the rare luxury of conversation without purpose. You go back to the attic. The violets are still there, their petals just starting to droop. They won't last long. Flowers never do. But they're beautiful right now, in this moment. And that's what matters. You sit on your bed and look out the window. The sky's darkening, the first stars appearing over the rooftops of London. Somewhere out there, beyond the walls of this house, the city is still alive. People are still walking, talking, living their free lives. But in here, in this tiny room, there's a different kind of peace. The peace of knowing where you belong. The peace of having a bed and a meal and a friend in the next bed over. The peace of violets on a windowsill bought with a penny you earned yourself. It's not the life you imagined. Not the life you would have chosen, if choosing were an option. But it's the life you have. And tonight, just for tonight, that feels like it might be enough. Mary comes in a while later, yawning. She sees you looking at the violets and smiles. "They're really pretty," she says. "We should get some every month. Brighten this place up a bit." "Every month?" "Why not? It's only a penny. We can afford that." A penny a month. 12 bunches of flowers a year. 52 weeks of something beautiful to look at. Something that belongs to you and Mary and no one else. "Okay," you say. "Every month." Mary climbs into her bed, pulls the thin blanket up to her chin. "Good night," she says, and closes her eyes. You stay at the window a little longer. The stars are brighter now, scattered across the sky like spilled sugar. The house is settling into sleep around you, its creaks and groans familiar as a heartbeat. Tomorrow the work begins again. The fires, the chamber pots, the endless cycle of cleaning and serving and disappearing. But tonight there are stars and violets and the memory of a spring afternoon when you were, just for a few hours, free. You lie down, close your eyes, and let the quiet darkness wrap around you like a gift. Summer comes to London like a fever. By June, the attic room has transformed from icebox to oven. The same small window that let in freezing drafts all winter now offers nothing but hot, stale air. You and Mary sleep with the covers thrown off, nightdresses hiked up, hair plastered to your foreheads with sweat. Some nights you barely sleep at all, just lie there in the darkness, waiting for a breeze that never comes. The heat changes everything. The morning fires feel cruel now, an extra layer of warmth in a world already too warm. You light them anyway, because the family wants hot water for their baths and warm rooms to dress in. Never mind that you've been sweating since before dawn. The coal seems heavier in summer. The stairs seem steeper. Every task takes twice the effort it did in the cool of spring. The kitchen is worse. Mrs. Hartley works in front of a range that burns all day, her face red as a tomato, sweat dripping from her chin into the soup. She's lost weight since the warm weather started, unable to eat in this heat, surviving on tea and willpower. Annie's hands are permanently red now, scalded by hot water and steam. The scullery feels like a laundry, humid and close, the air thick enough to chew. You've started dreading your kitchen shifts, knowing that an hour in there will leave you drenched and dizzy. But the family's part of the house stays cool. High ceilings, thick walls, strategically placed windows that catch whatever wind exists. The drawing room has been rearranged so the ladies can sit near the garden doors. Ice is delivered twice a week now, great blocks of it packed in straw, destined for the ice house in the cellar where it will keep the family's drinks cold and their food fresh. The ice delivery is a production in itself. 2 men with a cart hauling blocks that weigh more than you do. The servants form a chain to pass them down to the cellar, working quickly before they melt. The ice house is the one cool place in the entire building, and sometimes when Mrs. Whitmore isn't watching, you linger there for a few extra seconds, letting the chill air wash over you like a blessing. You carry pitchers of lemonade up the back stairs, condensation dripping down your wrists. The family sips their cold drinks in their cool rooms, never wondering how the ice got there, how the lemons were squeezed, how the sugar was measured and stirred. They just drink. That's all they have to do. 5 months you've been here now. The routines have become as natural as breathing. You know which floorboards creak and which stay silent. You know that Mrs. Whitmore takes her tea with 2 sugars but pretends she only takes 1. You know that Mr. Finch hums quietly to himself when he polishes the silver, old hymns from his childhood that he probably doesn't realise he's singing. You know that Master James has stopped lingering in the corridors near the housemaids' quarters. Something happened, you're not sure what, but he was sent away to visit relatives in Scotland for a month, and when he came back he seemed changed, quieter, less predatory. Whatever his father said to him must have been severe. The house breathes easier because of it. You all do. One evening in late June, Mr. Finch makes an announcement in the servants' hall. The annual servants' ball will be held on Midsummer's Eve. The family has approved it. One night of celebration, right here in the house, when the normal rules will be suspended and the servants can dance and sing and enjoy themselves like ordinary people. The servants' ball. You've heard whispers about it. fragments of stories from those who've been here long enough to remember previous years. It's a tradition in grand houses, a single evening when the world turns upside down. The family serves the servants. The butler can ask the mistress to dance. The scullery maid can sit in the drawing room and pretend, just for a few hours, that she belongs there. It's not as grand as it sounds, Mary warns you later in the attic room. The family only stays for an hour or so. They make a show of serving us one course, then they disappear and leave us to it. But still, it's something. Something. Yes. In a life measured out in chamber pots and coal buckets, even a small something is worth celebrating. The preparations begin immediately. Mrs. Hartley starts planning a special menu, dishes that are for the servants alone, not leftovers from the family's table. Cold meats and pies, things that won't require the kitchen to be any hotter than it already is. Strawberry fool for dessert, made with the last of the summer fruit. Real cream, not the watered-down version the lower servants usually get. The housemaids clean the servants' hall until it gleams. Every surface is scrubbed, every cobweb banished, every bit of brass polished until it catches the light. Someone finds paper streamers in a storage closet, left over from years past, and hangs them from the low ceiling. Someone else discovers a box of candle stubs, perfectly good except for being slightly crooked, and sets them in every corner. William and George rearrange the furniture 3 times, arguing about the best configuration for dancing. The long table gets pushed against one wall. The benches get stacked in the corridor. A space opens up in the centre of the room, stone floor swept clean, ready for feet that rarely have cause to dance. You don't have anything special to wear. None of the lower servants do. But Mary has been saving for months, a few pennies here and there, and 2 days before the ball she comes back from her half-day with a length of blue ribbon. "For your hair," she says, pressing it into your hands, "to match my shawl. We'll look almost respectable." The ribbon is soft and bright, the exact colour of a summer sky. You hold it like it's made of gold. Nobody has given you a gift since you left home. Not a real gift, something chosen and bought with someone else in mind. Your eyes sting, and you have to blink hard to keep from crying. Mary, you didn't have to. I know I didn't have to. I wanted to. She squeezes your hand. You're my friend. Friends give each other ribbons. That's how it works. Friends. The word settles into your chest like a warm stone. You have a friend, a real one, someone who thinks about you even when you're not there, who saves her pennies to buy you something beautiful. Midsummer's Eve arrives hot and golden. The longest day of the year, the sun lingering in the sky until nearly 10 o'clock. The work doesn't stop, of course. Fires still need lighting, though fewer of them now. Chamber pots still need emptying. The family still needs feeding. But there's an energy in the house, a buzz of anticipation that makes even the heaviest tasks feel lighter. Annie can't stop grinning. George keeps breaking into snatches of song. Even Mrs. Whitmore seems slightly less stern than usual, though that might just be wishful thinking. At 7 o'clock the servants gather in the hall. The long table has been pushed against the wall, making space in the centre for dancing. Candles flicker in every corner, casting warm light over faces that usually only see the grey glow of early morning. The paper streamers flutter in the breeze from the open windows. You're wearing your best dress, the grey one you arrived in, with Mary's blue ribbon threaded through your hair. It's not much, but it's yours, and tonight that's enough. The family arrives at 7:30. Lord and Lady Ashworth, Master James, Miss Catherine. They're dressed down, relatively speaking, the ladies in simple evening gowns, the men without their tailcoats. They look strange somehow, smaller, more human. Lady Ashworth carries a tray of sandwiches. Her hands are uncertain, clearly unused to the weight. She sets the tray on the table with visible relief, and a small cheer goes up from the assembled servants. "Happy Midsummer," she says, her voice pitched to Carrie. "Thank you all for your service this year. Please, enjoy yourselves." It's a speech she's probably given a dozen times before. The words are hollow, performative, but the servants cheer anyway because that's what you do. That's the game everyone agrees to play. Lord Ashworth pours drinks, actual drinks, from actual bottles into actual glasses that he carries around the room on a tray. Watching him fumble with the cork is almost worth the price of admission. His hands aren't made for this kind of work. They're made for signing documents and shaking hands with important men. The simple act of opening a wine bottle defeats him for nearly a minute. Mr. Finch, standing nearby, watches with an expression of carefully controlled agony. You can practically see him fighting the urge to step in and do it properly. Miss Catherine moves through the room, offering plates of cake. She reaches you and stops, her eyes flickering with what might be recognition. "You're the girl from the stairs," she says quietly. "The one with the coal." Your heart stops. "Yes, miss. I'm sorry about that, miss." "Don't be." She holds out the plate. "Take 2 pieces. The chocolate is better than the lemon." And then she's gone, moving on to the next servant, leaving you holding 2 pieces of cake and wondering if that actually happened. The family stays for exactly 1 hour. They serve, they smile, they make small talk with the upper servants. Then, at 8:30, they slip away to their own part of the house, and the real celebration begins. Someone produces a fiddle. Someone else has a penny whistle. The music starts, rough and joyful, nothing like the elegant arrangements that drift down from the family's parties. This is folk music, dancing music, the kind of tunes that make your feet move whether you want them to or not. George grabs your hand before you can protest. "Come on, you girl, time you learn to dance." You don't know the steps. You stumble and trip and nearly take out Annie, who's spinning past with William. George laughs and catches you, sets you back on your feet, shows you the basic pattern. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, around and around until the room blurs. But it doesn't matter that you're clumsy. Nobody's watching. Nobody's judging. For once in this house, you're allowed to be loud and imperfect and completely, utterly visible. The music shifts to something faster. A reel, someone calls it. You're swept into a line of dancers, hands joined, feet flying, left and right and around your partner and back again. The room is spinning. You're laughing so hard you can barely breathe. Agnes catches your eye as you whirl past. She's dancing with Mr. Crawford, the valet, both of them moving with surprising grace. Even Mrs. Whitmore is swaying slightly by the punch bowl, tapping her foot to the rhythm. You've never seen her look so human. The dancing goes on for hours. You switch partners, catching your breath between songs, gulping down cups of the punch that misses, heartily made with the last of the summer strawberries. Your ribbon comes loose and Mary reties it, her fingers quick and gentle against your scalp. Your feet ache, but you keep dancing anyway. At some point you end up dancing with William. He's quieter than George, more careful, but he moves like he was born to it. His hand on your waist is steady and respectful. "You're picking it up," he says. "The dancing. You're good." "I'm terrible." "You're enthusiastic. That counts for more." He spins you around, and for a moment you catch a glimpse of the window. Dark outside now, the longest day finally surrendering to night. The candles have burned low. The music has slowed. People are starting to drift toward the edges of the room, tired and happy. The fiddle starts a waltz, slow and sweet, nothing like the wild reels from earlier. William adjusts his hold, and you find yourself moving in a gentle circle, your feet finally finding the rhythm. "I'm leaving," he says quietly. end of summer, found a position in a house in Brighton, better wages, closer to the sea. The newsland, strangely. You've only known William for a few months, but in that time, he's become part of the landscape of this place, part of the team that makes the machine run. Will you miss it, you ask? Ashworth House. He considers the question seriously. Parts of it. The people mostly. George, Mr. Finch, you lot. He smiles just slightly. Not the work, never the work. But the people? Yeah, I'll miss them. The waltz ends. William steps back, bows formally, like you're a lady at a proper ball. You curtsy in return, feeling slightly ridiculous, but also somehow honoured. Good luck, he says. You'll be fine here. You've got the right temperament for it. And then he's gone, claimed by another partner for another dance, leaving you standing in the middle of the floor with his words echoing in your ears. The right temperament, whatever that means. At some point, you find yourself standing by the open window, cooling down between sets. The garden is silver in the moonlight, the flowers ghostly pale. You can hear the music behind you, the laughter, the stamp of feet on the stone floor. Mary appears beside you, flushed and happy. Not bad, is it? It's wonderful. Don't get used to it, but she's smiling. Tomorrow we're back to chamber pots and coal buckets. I know. You lean against the windowsill, letting the night air cool your face. But tonight we're not. No, tonight we're not. You stand there together, looking out at the garden, listening to the music. Two servants in a grand house, stealing a moment of peace from a life that rarely offers any. I'm glad you came here, Mary says suddenly. To Ashworth House. I know it's hard. I know it's not what you imagined. But I'm glad you're here. You think about the past 5 months, the fear and exhaustion, the endless work, the secrets you carry, the dangers you navigate, the constant effort of being invisible, but also this, the friendships, the small kindnesses, the violets on the windowsill and the blue ribbon in your hair in this moment right now, with music playing and the moon rising and someone telling you they're glad you exist. I'm glad too, you say, and you mean it. The ball winds down around midnight. The candles gutter and die. The musicians pack away their instruments. The servants drift off to bed, tired and happy, carrying the memory of this night like a treasure. You climb the back stairs one last time, Mary beside you, your feet complaining with every step. The attic room is still hot, the air still thick, but somehow it doesn't matter as much tonight. You untie the blue ribbon and lay it carefully on your pillow. Something to keep, something to remember this night by. Mary's already in bed, her eyes closed, a small smile still on her lips. Good night, she murmurs. Good night. You lie down, staring at the sloped ceiling, listening to the house settle into silence around you. The music is still playing in your head, faint and far away. Your feet are still tapping out the rhythm of the last dance. Tomorrow the work begins again, but that's tomorrow. Tonight you are a girl who danced at a ball, a girl with a blue ribbon and a friend who's glad she exists, a girl who belongs, however imperfectly, to this strange little world below the stairs. The moonlight creeps across the floor, your breathing slows, and somewhere in the space between waking and sleep, you find yourself smiling. The leaves begin to turn in September. You notice it first through the windows of the upstairs corridors, flashes of gold and copper among the green. The garden that was so lush in summer is starting to fade, the roses dropping their petals, the late flowers making their final stand before the frost comes. There's a crispness in the early morning air now, a hint of the cold months to come. The mornings are different now, darker. When you wake at 5, the sky is still black, the stars still visible through your small window. The attic room has cooled again, Not yet freezing, but no longer the oven it was in July. You've started sleeping under the blanket again, pulling it up to your chin, savouring those few minutes of warmth before the day begins. The house has changed too, in ways both large and small. New curtains in the drawing room, heavy velvet to keep out the winter drafts. A new carpet in the library, replacing one that was worn thin by generations of feet. The family has returned from their summer travels, tanned and rested, ready to resume their regular rhythms. You've been at Ashworth House for nearly a year. The thought strikes you one morning as you're laying fires in the drawing room. Almost a year since you arrived, terrified and uncertain, with nothing but a small bag and a letter of reference. Almost a year of waking before dawn, of coal and chamber pots and silver polish, of learning to disappear. So much has changed, and so little. William left in August, just as he said he would. The house in Brighton offered him a senior position, more money, a room with a view of the sea. George cried when he said goodbye, though he pretended it was dust in his eye. Mister. Finch shook William's hand and said something quiet that made William stand a little straighter. And then he was gone, his trunk loaded onto a cart, his footman's livery returned to Mrs. Whitmore's cupboard. The new footman is called Edward. He's younger than William was, more nervous, still learning the silent language of service. You catch yourself giving him the same advice Mary gave you all those months ago. Watch where the family is, learn the sounds of the bells, keep your head down and your eyes open. Strange to be the one giving advice now. Strange to realise you actually know things worth sharing. Annie has moved up in the world too. She's a proper kitchen maid now, no longer stuck at the scullery sink all day. Mrs. Hartley has taken her under her wing, teaching her the secrets of sauces and roasts, the timing of a perfect soufflé. There's a new scullery maid, a girl even younger than Annie was, and Annie treats her with the same gruff kindness that she herself once received. The cycle continues. People come, people go, but the house remains. The machine keeps turning. You're sitting in the servants' hall one October evening mending a torn apron when Mrs. Whitmore appears in the doorway. Your needle freezes mid-stitch. Nothing good ever comes from Mrs. Whitmore appearing unexpectedly. The other servants have noticed too. Conversations pause. Eyes flicker between you and the housekeeper. George stops shuffling his playing cards. Annie looks up from her knitting. But Mrs. Whitmore's face isn't stern. It's something else. Something almost soft. "A word," she says, nodding toward the corridor. You set down your mending and follow her, your heart beating faster with every step. This is it, you think. Something has happened. Something is wrong. You're being dismissed or reassigned, or... Mrs. Whitmore stops in the empty corridor, turns to face you. The gaslight flickers on the walls, casting strange shadows. She's silent for a moment, and you notice things you've never noticed before. The lines around her eyes, the grey threads in her dark hair, the slight stoop in her shoulders that comes from years of carrying the weight of an entire household. "You've been here nearly a year," she says. "Yes, Mum. Your work has been satisfactory, more than satisfactory in fact. You've caused no trouble, you've learned quickly, you've shown discretion." She pauses, and you swear you see the ghost of a smile cross her lips. "I'm promoting you to parlour maid. You'll start next week." Parlour maid. The words don't make sense at first. Parlour maids are senior. Parlour maids serve tea and answer doors and interact with guests. Parlour maids are trusted. Parlour maids wear better uniforms and eat at the upper end of the servants' table and have actual respect. "Ma'am, Thank you, ma'am." "Don't thank me. You've earned it." She straightens her already straight collar, a gesture you've seen her make 1,000 times. "Your new uniform will be ready by Monday. You'll shadow Agnes for the first week. Learn the formal service. After that, you're on your own. She turns and walks away before you can say anything else. You stand in the corridor, stunned, trying to process what just happened. Through the doorway of the servants' hall, you can see the others watching, waiting for news. Parlour maid. You're going to be a parlour maid. Your legs feel strange as you walk back into the hall. Everyone is looking at you. George raises an eyebrow. Annie bites her lip. Mary, who knows you better than anyone, is already starting to smile. Well, she asks. Parlour maid, you manage to say. I'm going to be a parlour maid. Mary is the first person you tell. She shrieks so loudly that Mrs. Hartley comes out of the kitchen to see who's being murdered. When she hears the news, even she cracks a smile. About time, Mrs. Hartley says. You've got the hands for it. Steady, careful, not like some of these clumsy girls they send us these days. George claps you on the back so hard you nearly fall over. Annie hugs you, her thin arms surprisingly strong. Even Mr. Finch, when he hears, gives you a solemn nod that feels like a standing ovation. That night in the attic room, Mary produces a small bottle of sherry that she's been hiding for a special occasion. To the new parlour maid, she says, raising the bottle. May she never drop a teacup. You take a sip. It's sweet and warm, spreading through your chest like liquid sunshine. I couldn't have done it without you, you say. Any of it. You taught me everything. I taught you to light a fire without setting the house ablaze. The rest you figured out yourself. She takes the bottle back, drinks deeply. I'm proud of you. Really. You came here scared as a rabbit, and look at you now. Look at you now. You think about the girl who arrived last winter, shivering in her thin coat, jumping at every bell. She feels like a stranger, someone you used to know a long time ago in a different life. You're not that girl anymore. You're someone else, someone stronger, someone who knows how to navigate this world, how to survive its dangers, how to find its small joys. Do you remember what you told me, you ask? About finding the good parts? Mary nods. I think I understand now. What you meant. You look around the tiny room, at the sloped ceiling and the narrow beds and the violets on the windowsill, replaced monthly as promised, a splash of purple against the grey. It's not about pretending the hard parts don't exist. It's about not letting them be the only thing you see. Look at you, getting philosophical. Mary grins. Must be the sherry. You laugh. Actually laugh, without checking first to see if anyone's listening. The sound fills the little room, bounces off the walls, disappears into the night. The weeks pass. You learn your new role, the formal dance of parlour service. How to carry a tea tray without rattling the cups, how to announce visitors without stumbling over their names, how to be present enough to anticipate needs but invisible enough to fade into the wallpaper. It's harder than housework in some ways, easier in others. The physical labour is lighter, but the pressure is greater. You interact with guests now, with the family themselves. A dropped tray or a mispronounced name reflects not just on you, but on the whole household, but you find that you're good at it, better than you expected. Your hands are steady, your voice is calm, your instincts are sharp. The years of watching, of learning, of paying attention have prepared you for this. November comes, grey and cold. The fires burn all day now, and the coal deliveries have doubled. The garden outside is bare, the trees skeletal against the pale sky. Winter is coming again, your second winter in service. But this year, you're ready for it. On a quiet evening in late November, you find yourself alone in the upstairs corridor. The family's at dinner. The other servants are below stairs, eating their own meal. You have a few minutes before you're needed, a rare pocket of stillness in the endless rush of the day. You stop by a window and look out at the city. The street lamps are lit, pools of yellow light in the gathering darkness. Fog is rolling in from the river, softening the edges of everything. turning the familiar streets into something mysterious and new. Somewhere out there, carriages are rattling home, families are sitting down to supper, children are being put to bed. A whole world going about its business just beyond these walls. A lamplighter moves down the street below, his long pole reaching up to touch each lamp in turn. You've seen him before, many times, but tonight you watch him differently. He has a job too, a routine, a place in the great machine of the city. He lights the lamp so that people can find their way home. You light the fire so that people can stay warm. Different tasks, but the same purpose, making life a little easier for someone else. You think about your mother in her cottage in the village. You sent her money last month more than usual from your new, slightly larger wages. Parlour maids earn more than housemaids. Not much more, but enough to make a difference. Enough to buy her a new shawl for winter maybe, or a bit of meat for the Sunday pot. She wrote back last week, her handwriting shaky but legible. She's proud of you, she said. Her daughter, a parlour maid in a grand London house. She's told all the neighbours. They don't quite believe it, but she doesn't care. You think about the future. Another year here, maybe 2, then perhaps a position somewhere else, a house in the country, or a grander house in town. You could be a head housemaid someday, maybe even a housekeeper if you work hard enough, if you're lucky enough, if you can stand to give your whole life to service the way Mrs. Whitmore has. Or maybe you'll leave service altogether, get married, have children, build a life outside these walls. There are men in London, working men, who might want a wife who knows how to run a household, who isn't afraid of hard work, who can turn a shilling into a meal. The future stretches ahead of you, uncertain but possible, full of paths you haven't chosen yet. Some of them lead further into service, some of them lead out. You can't see where any of them go, not really. You can only take the next step and trust that the path will become clear. For now, though, you're here, in this house, in this life, and that's enough. The dinner service goes smoothly. You help clear the final course, carry the coffee tray to the drawing room, stand ready in case anything else is needed. Lady Ashworth glances up as you pour her coffee, and for just a moment, your eyes meet. "Thank you," she says. Just that. 2 words. But there's something in her voice that sounds almost like she means it. You nod, step back, fade into the background. The invisible machine keeps turning. Later, much later, you climb the back stairs one last time. The house is quiet now, the family in their beds, the fire's banked for the night. Your feet know every step, every creak, every shadow. This staircase is as familiar as your own heartbeat. Mary is already asleep when you reach the attic room. Her breathing is slow and steady, the sound of someone at peace. You undress quietly, hang your uniform on its hook, pull on your nightdress. The violets on the windowsill have started to droop. Tomorrow you'll buy fresh ones, continue the tradition you and Mary started all those months ago. A penny a month, a small rebellion against the greyness. A reminder that beauty exists even in the hardest places. You lie down on your narrow bed. The mattress dips in familiar places, shaped by a year of your sleeping body. The blanket is thin but warmer than it was last winter. Or maybe you're just more used to the cold. Through the small window you can see the stars. The same stars that shone over this house 100 years ago, that will shine over it 100 years from now. The same stars that shine over your mother's cottage, over the village where you were born, over all the places you've been and all the places you might someday go. You're so small beneath them. One life among millions. One servant in an endless chain of servants stretching back through history and forward into the future. But you are here. You are alive. You are, against all odds, happy. The thought surprises you. Happy. Is that what this feeling is? Not joy exactly. Not the wild, fleeting happiness of the servants' ball or the sweet relief of a half-day off. Something quieter, something deeper, the happiness of belonging, of knowing your place in the world, even if that place is small. You think about all the people who have slept in this room before you, all the housemaids and kitchen girls and parlour maids who lay in this same bed, looked at these same stars, dreamed their own dreams of a future beyond these walls. Some of them escaped. Some of them stayed forever. Some of them were broken by the work, and some of them were shaped by it into something stronger. You don't know yet which you'll be. Nobody does until they get there. But tonight, you choose to believe you'll be one of the strong ones. Tonight, you choose to believe that the small joys are worth the struggle, that the friendships matter, that the work has meaning even when it's hard. Mary stirs in her sleep, murmurs something unintelligible, settles again. Your friend, your ally, the person who taught you how to survive this place, and, more importantly, how to find moments of grace within it. The house creaks around you, settling into the cold November night. Somewhere below, a door closes softly. Somewhere above, the wind whispers across the roof tiles. You're safe. You are warm. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Your eyes grow heavy. The stars blur and soften through the window. The last thought you have before sleep takes you is of the violets, purple against the grey, small but beautiful. Temporary but worth every penny. Tomorrow will bring new fires to light, new tasks to complete, new challenges to navigate. But that's tomorrow. Tonight, there's only this. The quiet room, the steady breathing, the stars keeping their ancient watch. Let your eyes close now. Let your breathing slow. Let the world outside this moment fade away, just as it fades for the girl in the attic, the servant who found her place, the small life that somehow, against all odds, became enough. The darkness is soft, the silence is kind. Rest now. You've earned it.